Here.
Smith?
Here.
Kavanaugh?
Here.
Staggers? Howes? Here. Mayor Munson.
Here, quorum present. Tonight, for invocation, we have Father Mark Lichter from the St. Lambert Catholic Church with us, and after the invocation, then we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance, so we'd all rise, please.
We stand before you, O God, conscious of our weakness and our sinfulness, but aware that we gather in your name. Come to us, remain with us, and enlighten our hearts. Give us light and strength to know your will, to make it our own, and to live it in our lives. Guide us by your wisdom, support us by your power, for you are God. You desire justice for all, enable us to uphold the rights of others. Do not allow us to be misled by ignorance or corrupted by fear or favor. Unite us to yourself in the bond of love and keep us faithful to all that is true. As we gather in your name, may we temper justice with love so that all our decisions may be pleasing to you and earn the reward promised to good and faithful servants. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to raise a point of personal privilege.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to introduce my parents, Kermit and Christine Staggers, who are here for 2 weeks from Florida. They wanted to get away from that hot weather in Florida, so thanks for being here, Mom and Dad.
Thank you and welcome to the council meeting tonight. Let's start out with the approval of the consent agenda. Is there any additions or deletions, or is there a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Move for approval. Is there a second?
Second, Benninga.
Second, comments on the motion. There being none, all in favor of approval of the consent agenda will vote yes. Those opposed vote no. Tamara, please call the roll.
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust?
Yes.
Benninga?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Howes?
Yes.
Consent calendar has been approved. Now we'll move to the approval of the regular agenda. Is there a motion to approve the regular?
Move for approval. Second, Smith.
Okay.
Mayor, I would like to advise council that there will be a verbiage change on items 8, 9, and 12. Their copies show AG Agricultural District. The record will be changed to reflect unzoned district.
Everybody get that?
Do we need a motion on that at all? Is that just part of the record?
You might need one on that. That's a change in the agenda, isn't it?
If it's made before you approve the agenda, it's okay.
Is it okay? So we're all okay. Then we're all right. All right. So we've got a motion to approve, and it's been seconded. Comments on the motion to approve the regular agenda. There being none, all in favor, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. Tamara?
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust?
Yes.
Benninga?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Howes?
Yes.
Has been approved. We start out with the item 6. It's the public hearing. Do you want to read that?
Okay. Public hearing for public input into the city's 2003 budget to be held prior to the adoption of a proposed resolution adopting the budget for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2003.
If there's anyone here tonight, they can address the council on the 2003 city budget that has been recommended by the mayor's office for that issue tonight. Is there anyone that wishes to address the council on the you're just addressing the mayor's budget, right? You're just going to address the mayor's budget? Okay. If you got 5 minutes, and then if you would please identify yourself, give us your address, and then tell us what you're here to discuss. We'd appreciate it. Yes, please.
Hi, Gordon Brown from the Sioux Falls YMCA. I live at 1009 South Tabbert Circle, and I was coming to address the middle school after-school program funding on the City Council's budget. And basically, my reason for doing this is because I know there's some question as far as increases with funding this year and why that may be. The middle school after-school programs, the program's been taking place for 8 years here in Sioux Falls, starting with the First Presbyterian Church, and has expanded into all 5 middle schools. It now serves 2,500 students that are enrolled in the program. Each day, about 600 students attend the program. And it's a variety of organizations that are involved in it. One thing that people may not be aware of with the middle school after-school program is that when the City Council started funding the program, with the YMCA funding for that was involved in Patrick Henry, Edison, and Memorial Middle Schools. And over at Axtell Park Middle School, along with Whittier Middle School, there was a federal grant that the school district had received to support the program for 3 years. That funding ran out as a one-time 3-year funding, and that ran out in the spring of 2002, actually June of 2002. And so last year, we had requested an increase in our funding through the city, along with the United Way, who is our other primary supporter, to cover the fall of 2002. Again, in 2003, we now have all 5 schools for a complete school year that we're funding, and the federal grant is not available for Whittier and Axtell middle schools. And so that is the reason for the increase for the 2003 budget year. With that, our actual funding per site in the program has actually remained the same for the past 5 years. And our request of $165,400 is to help assist with the program at all 5 sites, along with our other funding sources. I guess, are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Other questions?
Gordon, is the amount that you're requesting from the city is an increase over the '02 budget. Have you asked for and received a similar increase from United Way?
Yes, we have. United Way, and I, of course, used an automatic collator, which didn't collate all of my sheets correctly. But in 2001, United Way funding was $153,843. In 2002, it was $183,600, and currently in 2003, the United Way, assuming their campaign, their projected budget is $207,272.
Further questions?
Yes. Gordon, I understand that it costs about $4 per person per day to carry out this program.
That is correct. That includes the actual program itself, along with transportation home, snack, basically everything.
Has there been any thought in the future of maybe having those people who use this program pay some of the $4 instead of coming to the city and asking for a subsidy? We've
Recommended and asked for individuals to make contributions towards the program. The primary reason we've done the program is that those time periods from 3:30 to 6 p.m. on weekdays for middle school students is the #1 time for criminal activity, sexual activity, drug and alcohol abuse. And so it's our intent that those kids that maybe they're 12, they're old enough to babysit, they can stay at home, and most of them probably will be fine doing that, but that they have a positive alternative, whether their parents are going to actually sign them up for a daycare type of situation. The motive's a little bit different than being a service for the parents, like elementary daycare, it's a service for the kids.
Go ahead.
You mentioned you've asked for some money from the people that actually use the program. What kind of response do you get?
We actually, what we did this year, based on the $4 a day, we operate for 165 days or 36 weeks each school year. And so we suggested that for if they attend once a week, The $140 would be the actual cost of the program for that student. As far as actual response, at this point, it may add up to a couple of $1,000s. And so it's not, percentage-wise, it is not a significant portion of the actual budget.
Kenyon?
Gordon, if I remember correctly from our discussions about this issue in the past, this really boils down to an age group that probably, as you mentioned, many parents would choose to have them stay home versus paying for them to be in a program. And so we're talking about trying to protect our community and protect our kids
Exactly.
from this activity, where if they were forced to pay for this activity out of their own pocket, in all likelihood, most of these children would probably not come because their parents would not pay for it.
There have been similar programs. Actually, it's a very widespread thing right now across the country to have middle school, after-school programs. The ones that have done it on a pay basis, you get a very minimal number of kids involved. And actually, cost-wise, it'd be much higher per person cost because of the minimal number involved. In addition to that, with this program, we're trying to provide opportunities kids might not otherwise have. And even if their friends are paying, if they're not paying or willing to pay, then their friends wouldn't come, and then it basically has a domino effect on who would come or would not come to the program.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? If not, thank you very much.
Okay.
Are there others that wish to address
Thank
the council on the 2003 budget that has been submitted by the mayor? State your name, your address, and the reason you would like to address the council, please, in 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Kathy Brechtelsbauer, 2900 Poplar Drive. And I'm here to pick up on that prayer about justice and concern for others that was just prayed in here, because I'm asking you to somehow work it out to take the tax off the groceries, the 1 cent that people pay here in Sioux Falls on their groceries that they take home to put on their tables. And I know that's probably not built into this year's budget, but somehow to start the planning for that, or if you can't accomplish it by next week, at least work that out, because it needs to happen pretty soon. This tax actually does take food off tables.
Kathy, excuse me,
Yes.
that really wasn't in the mayor's budget at all. On that, if we're talking about items that were in the budget.
Right, but this affects the
Yeah, you
budget.
might-
So when would we talk about it?
Pardon?
This affects the budget, so when would we talk about it?
Because I have to put it in the budget, or this is what's in the mayor's budget. You know, maybe
Right.
More appropriately, if you want to address the council, if you want to wait until the end and the 5-minute input, you know, that might be the time to address that issue there if you'd like to do it that time.
Okay, I just assumed that it was about the budget, so,
Well, no, it's what's in the budget that we have. But you can sure, public input, you'd be more than welcome.
okay,
If you want to just wait.
Yeah.
Hopefully we move along pretty well for you tonight.
okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
If I could just
Go
briefly
ahead.
say something here. I can understand why Kathy wants to talk about it this time, because I have talked to her about this issue of trying to get rid of the
Right.
sales tax on food, and so that was how this got involved in the budget.
Oh, yeah, I had talked to Kathy before about eliminating the 1 cent sales
Right.
tax on food as part of the budget and so forth. So we talked about this, and this is why Kathy came at this
Yeah,
time.
no,
to
and
do
I
it.
do, I think,
Yeah.
you know, and I think she should have her 5 minutes, I have no problem. But I think if, you know, she could just wait until we go to the public input, I just think that, you know, would be the appropriate time. So, you know, we'll give her the 5 minutes when she comes there, at that time there, so that'd be fine. Okay, thank you very much. Are there others that wish to address the public input, the way that the budget was submitted on behalf of the mayor? If there is no further comment. There's no action that needs to be taken on that, so we can move to item 7.
Item 7, an amendment to a special one-day malt beverage license for the Sister Cities Association of Sioux Falls to be operated in the 300 block of South Phillips Avenue for the German Fest on Saturday, September 14th, 2002, adding the 200 block of South Phillips Avenue to the licensed area.
Is there Anyone that wishes to address the council on item 7? There.
Move for approval.
Move for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Comments on the motion to approve item 7? There being none, all in favor of item 7 will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. Tamara, please call the roll.
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust?
Yes.
Benninga?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
House?
Yes.
Item 7 has been approved. Item 8.
Item 8, second reading rezone. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at West 57th Street South and Galway Avenue from the unzoned district to the RS2 residential district to allow single-family development. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Steve Bentley, Planning and Building Services. This item is a 15.5 acre parcel of land located south of 57th Street and east of the T. Ellis Road. It is proposed for RS2 single-family development. The Planning Commission has reviewed the request for rezoning and has recommended approval of that request. I think there was some question on why it was unzoned versus ag zone on the change. We don't have a joint zoning agreement with Lincoln County. And so when we take land into the city from Lincoln County, it comes in as unzoned. In Minnehaha County, it comes in as to what it was zoned in the county, because we do have a joint agreement with them.
Are there questions of Steve on item number 8? If not, thank you. Are there others that wish to address the council on item 8? If not, is there council action or discussion on item 8?
Move for approval.
Move for approval. Is there a second?
Second, please.
Second. Comments on the motion to approve? There being none, all in favor of item 8 will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. Tamara, please call the roll.
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust? Yes. Benninga?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
House?
Yes.
Item 8 has been approved. Item 9.
Item 9, second reading rezone. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at West 57th Street South and Galway Avenue from the unzoned district to RS2 residential district for single-family residential development. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is another 15-acre parcel. It's a part of the same development as the previous parcel we approved. A separate ownership situation exists here. Later on in the meeting, there will be a preliminary plan subdivision for this area and the area around it that you will be asked to approve. Again, this is a rezoning to RS2 single-family for single-family development in this area. The developer in both cases is Mike Thurman, who is here tonight as the developer of this property. And one of the things that I want to point out is that we're working with Mike on both the detention pond that runs through this area. This is a relatively flat area and it needs a great deal of detention and water drainage. And we're also working with Mike, and he has indicated to us that he's going to gift to the city over and above the detention pond area, roughly a 6-acre park that'll be along Galway Avenue and be called Galway Park in this subdivision. The 2015 plan does call for a small neighborhood park in this area, and so we're appreciative of Mike's cooperation.
Thank you, Steve. Are there questions?
Steve, do you have any idea how much this neighborhood park would cost the city in the future?
Well, in the future, on this neighborhood park, you'll probably end up with a picnic shelter and perhaps a backstop and some playground equipment. So just developing that park, give you a ballpark estimate, would probably be somewhere in the area of at most $100,000.
Other questions?
Steve, as I look at the preliminary subdivision plan, it shows a street on both the north and south of, well, I guess it turns to be east and west as it goes up, but all of the homes along the lower end, right along the detention pond, look like they have a street on both sides. Is that accurate? No, I'm sorry, further north. Right along, yeah, along the curve there.
Yeah, those homes will back up onto the drainage way and to the larger detention pond area.
So that's not a street back there? That's
No,
just a detention pond?
that's a drainage. That's
Okay.
the actual low-flow drainage channel that runs
Okay.
through that area. That's where you see all the wetland grasses growing and that type of thing.
And then the generous gift of the park is at the bottom?
Yes, along Galway there, roughly 300 by, I want to say 1,100 feet.
Thank you.
Further questions of Steve on item 9? No, thanks, Steve. Is there others that wish to address the council on item 9? If not, we'll close it to committee discussion or committee action on item 9.
Move for approval.
Move for
Second,
approval,
Kavanaugh.
Second. Comments on the motion to approve? There being none, all in favor of approval of item 9 will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. Tamara, please call a roll.
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust?
Yes.
Benninga?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers? House?
Yes.
Item 9 has been approved. Item 10.
Item 10 is a second reading rezone, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at East 10th Street between 4812 East 10th Street and Foss Avenue from unzoned land to C2 General Commercial District for future development and to conform with existing zoning of property surrounding said land. Planning Commission recommends approval.
We were informed today by the developer, in this case, Sam Assam, that they did not get their signs posted in time for this hearing, so we're asking that this hearing be deferred to the 16th of September.
Move to defer to the 16th.
Is there a second?
Second, Smith.
Second. Everybody understands the motion? Comments on the motion? All in favor of deferring will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no.
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust? Benninga?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh? Staggers? House?
Yes.
Item 10 has been deferred until, what did we say, the 16th? Item 11.
Item 11, second reading rezone, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at 1604 and 1700 East 18th Street from RC Recreation Conservation District to I-1 Light Industrial District to bring parcel land uses into conformance with zoning. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is approximately a third of an acre of land located on roughly 18th and Southeastern. This parcel at one time was tied to parcels along the river, and when River Boulevard was built some years ago, this parcel was cut off from the balance of the RC property. It is now adjacent to properties owned I-1 and owned by the same property owner. He is seeking to rezone this parcel to be in accordance with the balance of his property. And the Planning Commission does recommend approval.
Questions of Steve on item 11? If not, are there others that wish to address the council on item 11? Do you want to address the council? Okay. We got someone else who wants to address the council.
Doug Brockhouse, Bender Commercial Real Estate, 122 South Phillips Avenue, Sioux Falls. The purpose of rezoning this piece, as Steve mentioned, is to combine this zoning with the zoning of the same property adjacent to it within the fence line. Just for informational purposes, on Thursday evening, there will be an auction of this piece of property, the entire piece. At that time, potential investors in the piece of property will probably come back to the city, and you can actually even make it a requirement as far as what they plan on doing with that property. Obviously, Steve and the city has been very cognizant of the park and the greenway along the other side of the roadway, and this parcel needs to kind of conform to that, and the owner of the property understands that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there questions, Doug, on that? Now, thank you very much. Are there others that wish to address the council on item 11? If not, is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Kavanaugh.
Second, Kavanaugh. Comments on motion to approve item 11. There being none, all in favor of item 11, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. Tamara, please call the roll.
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust?
Yes.
Benninga?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers? House?
Yes.
Item 11 has been approved. Item 12.
Item 12 is a second reading rezone, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at West 85th Street South and Southwestern Avenue from the unzoned district to the Heather Ridge Plain Development District to allow for mixed-use development. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This property is located on the northeast corner of two arterial streets in the city of Sioux Falls, 85th Street and Western Avenue. The petitioner is seeking a mixed-use development on it, and thus is seeking the PD Plan Development designation on the parcel. The development is roughly 31 acres, and he is proposing to develop commercial property in subarea A on the corner, twin homes on subarea B adjacent to the commercial along 85th Street. And the layout as shown on the screen now, that would be, these homes right here would be twin homes off of a private drive that would front back onto 85th Street. This is the commercial office area that's being proposed. And he's also seeking an area of quad homes or townhomes along Western Avenue in this general area and wrapping around what is a 10-acre multifamily site. In the multifamily site, he is proposing to develop roughly 220 apartment units with underground parking, and then the quad homes would wrap around that. I think there's approximately 88 total units in the quad homes. The development also includes 100-year drainage ways, which are on the plan in this area near the commercial and the twin homes, and then also running from 85th Street to the north along the quad homes and into what will be a major 30-acre detention pond in the future. So there's about 5 acres of what we call RC conservation space for 100-year storm drainage. And again, just to briefly explain those drainage areas and detention ponds, 20 years ago, they'd all be concrete, and we'd be rushing water to the river and creating an environmental hazard. By doing that, with these 100-year drainage ways and the detention ponds that we now use in our system, we're able to clean the water before it gets to the river, and thus we have a requirement for dedication of those 100-year drainage ways. And we are working with the property owner, the developer in this case, to purchase the 30 acres to the north for a detention pond. And we're also working with him on a park land for the city of Sioux Falls. It's a small part of this particular 160-acre development. When it's fully developed, this 160 acres will have approximately 550 housing units in it, and 220 of those will be single family, 220 multifamily, and then roughly 100 that will be twin homes and quad homes, which we consider low-density housing in all of our plans. There was a great deal of discussion at the Planning Commission on this issue. The first time it came through, it contained 119 more units than it does today. And the Planning Commission, by a split vote, voted to deny the petition. Petitioner then withdrew his petition, met with the neighborhood again, lowered the development by 119 units, and brought it back to the Planning Commission. After a great deal of discussion and input from the neighborhood and consideration by the Planning Commission, they recommended unanimously that we approve this PD rezoning at that location.
Questions of Steve?
Steve, as kind of a new kid on the block, will you remind me where else in Sioux Falls there would be a comparable amount of land? I'll say 31 acres of multi-family zoning on one intersection.
There's only 10 acres of multifamily zoning on this intersection. That's where the apartments are being proposed, and they're being proposed set back on the site and lower down on the hill, so they're not visible to any great extent from anybody around the site. The balance of the site is quad homes and townhomes, and we just, I think 3 months ago, approved a 55-acre quad home site a mile to the north of this and a little bit to the west. But if you look at the zoning map around Sioux Falls and look to where there's this amount of multifamily zoning or more, you don't have to look far. There's roughly 20 acres of multifamily zoning at the intersection of 85th and Louise, along Louise Avenue on the what would be the east side. You go up to Madison and Sycamore, which is in the 3rd Street and Sycamore area, and there's roughly 20 acres of multifamily land at that site, and much of it's being developed as we speak. So 10 acres of multifamily land is not uncommon in Sioux Falls. Last month, we approved a 900-unit condominium and townhome development at Lake Lorraine, over in the area of Marion Road and Genie Drive, wrapping around a 30-acre lake. And there's roughly 80 acres there that's developed for housing that will have 900 units on it.
Further questions? Andy?
So you don't feel, it's your contention that the quad houses are not multifamily housing?
No.
Is that consistent with how other developers have been handled on other projects?
Yeah, we just did that with Clint Stensel on his development on the property at 69th and near Yankton Trail Road on 55 acres. We call them single-family attached housing units by definition.
Further questions? Go ahead.
This is the second time since I've been on the council where we've had an issue where we've had developers on opposing sides of a development. And that troubles me. I think when it gets to this stage, those types of issues should be ironed out. So I'm having a real hard time on this particular item. My instinct is to let a developer do what they want to with their land, as long as it falls within the 2015 plan and what the city allows other developers to do. So I'm having a hard time understanding why on one side of an issue we've got concerned homeowners and at least one developer that thinks that this project doesn't fall within what we allow others to do, and that that land close by a similar project could not be done on. So my question to you is, I guess, what is your sense of why there's some confusion on this? I don't.
Well, I think you're talking about the Costello family owns the land to the
west.
To the west.
Right.
They were in and objected to the very first proposal, and I haven't heard from them since they lowered it 120 units and modified their site, to lower the roof lines of the apartments and that type of thing. So
we have heard, I think it's safe to speak for the council on this, we've heard from both sides of this, and those are some of the people that are opposed to it, and for the reasons I just said, and it's the inconsistency there that concerns me, because I would hope that all developers have the same sense of what they could potentially do with a piece of land.
we treat all developers equally. And one of those corners I was talking about, where we did 20 acres of multifamily zoning, was owned by Mr. Costello as a part of the Richmond Estates development in the northeast part of the city.
Okay.
So we've treated Darrell Varick down the street equally. We've treated Don Dunham, some would say more than equally. But
there's nothing.
He exceeded the recommendations of the Planning Commission, and the council approved it. So.
Further questions?
Steve, you referenced Lake Lorraine. I wasn't going to ask that, but I will now that you brought it up. I'm not necessarily seeing similarities, and I don't have the map in front of me. I know we just approved it here a couple weeks ago, but you're talking, one is a gated community with, I think, a significant amount of area in terms of buffers, versus this is right across the street from a single-family development. I mean, maybe I'm missing something with that, but...
Well, the nearest single family here is over 2 city blocks away to the apartments. Some of the protesters are almost a half a mile away. So I think we have to, figure what is neighborhood. These are rural housing areas where the lots are anywhere from 1 acre to maybe 5 or 7 acres in that area. And we're going to be bumping into that as we grow.
Okay.
So, yeah, we do think there's some buffer there. And the Planning Commission does too.
The question I had was, just doing the math real quickly here, we're at 328 units now. That's what's being proposed. Initially, what was proposed, if you add back the 119 that was reduced, we were at 447 units initially. Two questions I guess I'd have on that is, one, was the planning staff approving of that initial plan at 447? And is it even physically possible to get 447 units in there?
Absolutely. On that much land, what they've done to soften that quite a bit is build more of a quad home development around it and cutting their densities down. and also reducing the scale or the mass of some of the buildings in there. This is not considered a real high-density development. We have developments in the downtown area. The Beetle Greenway area was developed at 1 per 1,000 square feet units, and that's the RA2 zone that we have in some other parts of the city too. But this is RA1 zoning, and with their proposal and accelerators that they're allowed for because of underground parking and that type of a thing, they can get up to the density that we're talking about under the RA1 zoning.
Further questions?
Steve, the 119 units that were reduced from the initial plan to what we see tonight, was it taken from all different sub-areas or just one?
Just primarily from the apartment sub-area and the area around it where the quad homes are at.
So it was taken from sub-area B and sub-area C?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Further questions? Dee?
Steve, I watched the second Planning Commission meeting on this matter on Channel 61, and still I'm trying to learn lots and lots about planning and zoning. But one thing I wondered, would it be typical to consider the drainage land as the acreage involved for, or the area involved for density purposes? Because that almost seems a little bit misleading to me, since obviously that land can't be used.
That is typical.
That's typical.
That is typical. And when we talk about the entire site, we also include the 30-acre detention pond area, because, as you know, they turn into almost a park-like atmosphere and they become part of the development. And so we do include, when we talk about 160 acres of development, we encourage developers to develop 4 to 5 units per acre, because we get maximum use of our infrastructure that way, and we help defeat what people call urban sprawl. And we don't scatter out all over the countryside. So we encourage mixed housing types. We've been encouraging that for 20 years. It's now becoming very popular because people are seeing the market change. As the baby boomers move out of their single-family homes, they're going to be looking more for leisure-type living, and that is higher quality apartments or condominiums. And I think that's what Mr. Van Buskirk is trying to address here.
Further questions? Kenyon?
Steve, just a question on the buffer. One of the things we've always done, or at least I personally as a council member have always been concerned about, is an appropriate buffer. And you addressed the issue a little bit, but I'd like you to touch on it a little bit more in terms of why you feel what's been established here in the proposed plan is an appropriate buffer to the neighbors to the south and to the west in particular.
I think the best thing we can do to show you what we're talking about is let the developer make his presentation to you. He and his architect have gone to great lengths to show what the view lines will be of this development and the buffers that they've developed for it, and they can show it to you a lot better than I can explain it to you.
Yep. Thank you.
Further questions of Steve?
I just have one more, Steve. In the Planning Commission minutes from the last Planning Commission meeting, it's reported here, Jeff Schmidt came forward to clarify some of the comments made. He stated that the highlights that have been referred to in the growth management plan by the neighbors are in reference to urban areas only. He said the area that this rezoning pertains to is rural. Can you explain or elaborate on that? Because yes, this is a rural area and we just annexed it in, but yet, of course, with approving this, it will potentially rapidly become an urban area. So how would that be? Are there two different levels?
I think he misspoke there a little bit, and I'll explain that to you with the development standards that we established, or the planning policy frameworks that we established in the 2015 plan. Again, we're similar in nature to what we had in the year 2000 development plan. But in the 2015 plan, we have planning policy framework. We cover urbanized areas, which are already developed areas, and what do we need to do to enhance and improve and encourage, redevelopment. Then we have planned and future urbanized areas, which would apply to this particular area. And then we have rural areas. How do we treat rural development outside of the city? Well, one of the things we discourage is rural subdivisions, because we run into this type of a situation as the city grows. And we have a difficult time with it, because there's people living out there, been living out there for 20 or 30 years and had a very pastoral rural setting. And we're developing more typical urban neighborhoods as we grow out into those areas. So I understand their concern, but I also think the developer in this case has addressed most of those concerns, and hopefully he'll be able to provide you with that. But if you look at the urbanized area in the 2015 plan, or planned and future urbanized areas, I think you would read down that and find that this, the list of criteria that we have there is almost addressed perfectly by this development. So I think this development is very meets those kind of policy frameworks that we set for ourselves when we did the 2015 plan. Much the same as many, many other subdivisions that we have approved that have grown out and butt up now against rural subdivisions.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make it clear that we just have one 2015 plan.
That's correct.
Correct, okay.
But again, I want to reiterate, we do look at the overall density of the area because that's how we plan these areas. That's how we size water, sewer, street improvements. And we do encourage 4 to 5 units an acre on a typical 160-acre quarter section. This one is coming in at much less than that, I think about 3.4 overall density for that area. So we're not cramming people in there. There's lots of open space, and because they're putting their parking underground with the apartments, there's a lot of green space around the apartments.
Further questions of Steve?
Just one last one as we follow. How many parking spots are included in this plan?
I don't know.
What do we figure per unit?
Typical,
what, 1.5 or 2?
For a development like this, typical there's 2.
So we'd be like 1,000 vehicles or something to that effect down?
Yeah,
Not including the commercial, just the
yeah, just including the
residential.
Yeah, the
okay.
220 apartments and 88 quad homes and a number of twin homes in that area. You're probably looking at 600, 650.
Okay. Thank you.
Andy, go ahead.
Just last question would be,
Sure.
Just again, struggling with this a little bit after having to talk to both sides of it, and I think everybody on both sides is sincerely believing that where they stand on it is to be true. So are the opponents of this who think that it is too much density, that it goes against what the 2015 plan lays out, is it just a misunderstanding, do you think, of what the 2015 plan lays out? Or?
Well, I think it's how you want to interpret the 2015 plan, I guess. I think you have a fairly special circumstance here because you have some topography that's very different from most of our residential developments. You also have some fairly large open spaces where there are detention ponds and drainage ways, and that also create some special problems for this site. So there is some room on the corner for the commercial and the office, but then there's a drainage way that runs off, and then there's a little area that you can squeeze some twin homes into and stay out of the drainage way in the 100-year flood. And then you have another knob going off to the north, and that's where they chose to put their 10 acres of RE1 multifamily, which is not out of the ordinary. And they wrapped around that to create some buffer, what are called quad homes or townhomes, single-family attached homes, that will help buffer the area around them. That's how confident they are that these apartments of theirs are going to not have adverse effect on anybody's property value or their quality of life.
Further questions, Dean?
Steve, if we were to approve this project, would we be setting a bad precedent for the future of planning in Sioux Falls?
Absolutely not. Matter of fact, I think if you tried to knock them all down to single family, you'd end up with probably somewhere in the area of 2.5 units per acre throughout that development, which is about half of what we encourage developers to provide in order to avoid this idea of sprawl and keep a compact growth form, so we're not eating up so much land. Okay.
Further questions? Not. Thank you, Steve. Are there others that wish to address the council on item 12?
Okay. You want a bit of beer?
Please state your names and addresses, please.
Good evening.
My name is Myron Van Buskirk. I'm the developer of this property, known as Heather Ridge, second edition or South or whatever. Heather Ridge PD. It's PD that's located at corner 85th and Western Avenue. I have contacted all you folks on the council and asked that if we didn't visit, at least you had an opportunity to drive out and take a look at the site, and I hope all of you did. There was quite a bit of reference to the topography in the neighborhood around there, so I certainly hope that you did take an opportunity to do that. In planning this development, we reviewed, let me back up a little bit actually, before we purchased this property, which probably none of you are particularly concerned about, but at the time we purchased it, we were aware of 2015 plan. We've also been around long enough that we're very much aware over the years of the year 2000 plan, which has been followed fairly closely in the city of Sioux Falls. And the way it looks to us at least, is the year 2015 plan is also being followed, and that was our guideline when we purchased this property to get ready to develop it. As most of you probably know, we also own most of the quarter section immediately north of this, which we just call Heather Ridge. That's where my Heather Ridge second edition is coming from. Also, in planning this development, we initially met with planning staff, and throughout this, as we got started, the neighbors, the landowners around this, some of them live out there, some of them do not live out there. Had some meetings. We attended several meetings with them, some that they invited us to and some that we invited them, and we had pretty good attendance at most of them. The plan that is before you for your approval is the final result of all these meetings and input from all the various sources that I mentioned, and probably some that I haven't mentioned, engineering people and that sort, those sort of people. Spencer Ruff, who is here tonight, is the architect that we've used to do most of the design work on this project, and he will go through most of our thought process, some of the changes that we have made over the months that we've been working on this. And one of the things that the neighborhood wanted was for us to show them more exactly what we're talking about doing out there. That's a very expensive thing to do if we go ahead and design buildings without having zoning done and that sort of thing. So one of the concerns was 3 stories, so the architect, we did a computer animation to show some of those things, so we tried to do that. But anyway, he will go through that in just a little bit here, and then I will try to summarize a little bit when he's done, so when I leave I plan to come back a little bit. This plan before you has been approved by the planning staff of the city and was unanimously approved by the Planning Commission. And we need to keep in mind that this approval tonight is just for the rezoning of the property. Being a PD, we have to go back and get final approval of the development plan as we develop this. And that will probably be done in stages, I would assume. And we talk about densities out here. My numbers vary a little bit, but we go back a little bit on history of this and how many units that we have deleted from this project. During our meetings with the neighbors, we've attempted to address some of these concerns. Obviously, with the people in attendance, we haven't addressed all the concerns, or maybe any of them. We tried to boil down to the concerns that we felt that the neighborhood had. I will talk about them a little bit between myself and Spencer Rupp. We have 5 major concerns that we have listed that I believe are their concerns. The first is density of the residential land use, the amount of it, the density of the project. Hand in hand with that, the number 2 concern that we think has been identified is the vehicle traffic. And one of the council people just asked the question, how many parking places and therefore how many cars will we have? So the amount of vehicle traffic in that area is certainly a concern. Third was visual appearance of 3-story buildings. Nobody wants to, or very few people at least, probably want to live right across the street from a 3-story building. And we have tried to address that concern. Another concern, 4th concern, was that this will set a precedence, some of the question of the developer across the street, but also the landowners to the south. Set a precedence that you're committing to apartments on all 4 corners, not just the one that we're dealing with here tonight. And the fifth concern, that this is an unusually large area of multiple family land. In other words, something that is unusual to this property and is not more or less common throughout several places in the city. We have made several design changes to try and address some of these concerns, and Spencer will describe those. The major change that we have made, and Steve just gave you a different number than I have, but this thing has shifted considerably, and we've been up and down with several people. We initially were proposing 472, and my number's a little larger than his, so it makes us look a little better, hopefully. But we have from that to what you have before you tonight is a reduction of 144 units, which is a 31% reduction, although I don't disagree with Steve's number. It depends which tentative proposal we started with. And this reduction in multiple family, the number of multiple family units, has primarily been done initially by reducing our request for multiple land, the RA zone multiple family land. Initially, we incorrectly made some assumptions. We assumed that the corner there, they would probably be probably would encourage us maybe to rather have multiple family across the street than neighborhood commercial area. We were wrong in that case. But anyway, we have reduced the number of acres that we're asking multiple family, medium density multiple family on from 26.2 acres to the I believe it's 10.3 acres that is before you tonight. This reduction in the number of living units out there, quad homes or townhouses, for sale twin homes, and the multiple family, obviously will also reduce the vehicle traffic that is in this area. One thing that Spencer will point out, and I want to bring it up so it isn't lost there, is that all our multiple family traffic exits onto 85th Street, which is in the year 2015 Plan A minor arterial, as is 85th Street. The neighbors that live out there currently all exit onto 85th Street, except those that live south of 85th, and some of those exit onto Western Avenue. As far as being an unusually large amount of multiple family next to a rural housing area, and we have moved our multiple family a ways, we only have to look even in that same section. If you look at the intersection of 69th and Minnesota Avenue, right across the street without a buffer from Emerald Acres is an apartment project over there that encompasses about 15 acres. We bought that land from the developer, part of that land, about 10 acres from the developers that we have built some buildings south of Oak Hills Baptist Church. But the land north of, between us and which some of the land that the church owns is multiple family. And then the multiple family extends along the west side of the church right up to 69th Street is zoned multiple family RA1. And that is immediately across the street from single family homes that are in Emerald Acres. And as Steve mentioned, there's other areas in the city that have similar or higher number of acres of multiple family. To the west and to the south of this land, I was just mentioning there in Prairie Meadows, across the street in this case, and all those cases, is RD land, which is twin home land. So you don't have to look very far, and again, that's another 15-acre multiple family area that's right across the street, which was at one time rural residential. Right now, I want to turn it over to Spence, and he'll go through the design process that we have done here, and if you have any questions myself, I'll answer them now or a little bit later.
Are there any questions of Myron right now that anybody would like to ask Steve?
Myron, I just have a quick question. Did you ever very seriously consider just going to a two-story out there?
No, not very seriously, just because of the economics of it and where we want to go.
Further questions? If not, thank you very much. Further discussion?
Good evening. My name's Spencer Ruff. I'm the architect for the project. My address is 732 East Woodlawn Drive here in the beautiful city of Sioux Falls. I'm very happy to be here tonight to talk to you about this project. Perhaps we could put up the site plan for me, please. Myron and both Myron and Steve addressed some of these issues, but I'd like to go back and kind of reiterate some of them. First, I'd like to take a look at the various sub-areas. As was mentioned, sub-area A, which is about 2.4 acres, is commercial. That's on the corner of Western Avenue and 85th Street. Sub-area B is about 10.23 acres, contains the 222 units of apartments that we're talking about. At this time, the design is for 2 48-unit apartments and 3 42-unit apartments, which therefore make up the 222 units. Sub-area C, as Steve calls them, quad homes. That's a new one. I've never thought about quad homes, but it's a good definition, or attached townhouses. They occur on 9.56 acres, and there's 88 of those total units, 4 to a building. And then sub-area D, which is along 85th Street, contains a total of 18 units of twin homes, that is 9 buildings. Sub-area E is the open space that Steve and Myron have addressed. That gives you, again, a reiteration of the overview of the project. If you take the blended density of the project, that is, you take all the area except for sub-area A, the commercial, you end up with 1 unit for about 3,800 square feet of site. An example of a higher density that's reasonably close to this is Platinum Valley Apartments, which are up the road from this site, which have a density of 1 to 2,000 square feet of site area. The next issue I'd like to talk about is traffic. As I designed this, I tried to make every attempt to keep as much traffic off 85th Street as possible. I think Myron had a slip of the tongue when he said that most of the traffic went on to 85th Street. I think he meant to say most of the traffic goes on to Western Avenue. For those of you who've been out to the site, you probably noticed that as you proceed south on Western Avenue that there's quite a hill that you go over the top of. We don't have any information, but we suspect when the city redesigns Western Avenue that they're going to cut that hill down. That's very dangerous to come over the top of a hill to a major intersection. In an attempt to make the traffic as safe as possible, we've limited the egress from the site to one road that's on the north end of the site. And as you can see on the site plan, we've put a very long extended boulevard, which allows a considerable amount of stacking space for cars as they leave the site, and also allows them a good throat to enter onto the site so that you don't have somebody back out of a housing unit just at the same time that somebody's coming onto the site. The other access to the site is to the south, and it is between on Western Avenue. Is between the sub-area C and the sub-area A, and this is a joint access to both the housing part of the site and to the commercial area. And this is very common in the city. I'm sure that you've seen this, where the planning staff and the engineering staff recommend those joint uses so that you don't have a lot of exits next to each other. In regards to the exit onto 85th Street from sub-area D, we have 1 exit. Next thing I'd like to address is building setbacks, how far things occur from the street. Sub-area D, which contains, as I said, 9 twin homes, have the following setbacks. The closest setback to 85th Street is about 30 feet. The furthest setback is around 160 feet. Then in addition to that, you have a 100-foot separation of your recreation, of your RC open space land. So it's a very substantial distance before you even get back to the quad homes, or the townhouses, as I call them. Another thing that I'd like to point out is the dynamics of the site. One of the really beautiful things about this site is the large slope to the site. That is, it slopes from the west to the east around 40 to 45 feet. So it is quite a hillside. And what we've done is that we've taken the sub-area that's for the apartments, that is sub-area B, and we've cut that grade down considerably. We've taken that soil and spread it around the south and the east edge in order to build up where the quad homes go. And there are two reasons for that. One is so that we weren't building the apartments on top of the hill, and secondly was that we need fill along the edges of the site to raise those units above the floodplain. And I think that's a very important issue to understand just how far we're recessing the apartments down. Basically, the first floor of the apartments are at or below the first floor of the quad homes. The quad homes are 2 stories high with a pitched roof. The apartments are 3 stories high. As Mr. Metley said, we're putting parking below the ground for the apartments. Half the parking that's required, which is two units per apartment, is below ground. The other 2 are above ground. So if you look at the site, you'll see a lot of green space around the apartments once you're on the site. What I'd also like to just talk to you a little bit about is this 3D animation that you're going to see. Architects now have a wonderful tool which is called computers and 3D software that allows us to very accurately create 3-dimensional models of our design. What we are about to show you, however, does have 2 limitations, and I want to be very straightforward about this. Limitation number 1 is that the topography or the contours that you see on this site are taken from an aerial topographic survey. They are not on-site surveys. So they're not accurate to a matter of a few inches. They're accurate to a couple of feet. Second of all, we do not know what the grades are on Western Avenue and 85th Street because those will be drastically changed once the city engineers work on regrading that. However, we do know that Western Avenue will be lowered. And so whatever views you see on this 3D will be enhanced by it. That is, you'll be able to see less of the apartments. The concept's really very straightforward when it comes to how do you hide 3-story apartments. The first thing you do is you regrade the site to drastically lower the elevation of those buildings in relationship to all the other buildings. And secondly is that you ring those apartments with relatively tall quad homes in order to cut down that sight line. Now, I did address limitations, however, since it's my reputation at stake here, because someday all this is going to get built, hopefully, and when it does, people darn well better see what's shown on this animation. And I would not stand here today and risk 20 years of my reputation by frankly lying to you, by using technology to misinform you. So I'll go on record as guaranteeing that what you see will be able to be achieved. It's not some animation trick of some sneaky architect. Not that there are any sneaky architects, of course, but if there are, I'm not one of them. What we did, and we'll get to this 3D in just a few seconds here. First thing we did is we prepared a 3D contour drawing using the contours that you see. Secondly, we prepared 3D models of the apartments, the townhouses, the townhomes, and the commercial buildings. And then we inserted those 3D models in at design elevations. That is, I actually went through and said, okay, what are all these buildings' first floor elevations? And these models were inserted at those elevations. And then what I started to do is playing around with grading and saying, well, what if we raised this building or lowered this building? And we made several attempts before we got to a point where we felt that we could effectively hide the appearance of a 3-story apartment house through the various design tools that we've talked about. The animation starts as an aerial view and swings around the site from an aerial perspective to kind of give you an overview of the site. And then it descends down to eye level, which is 5'6" above grade. And it proceeds down the middle of Western Avenue to 85th Street and then turns and goes east on 85th Street. Roll 'em. the wonders of technology. Well, this obviously isn't an animation totally, but what you can see here, and maybe we can pause, can you pause some of these? Sure. Okay, we'll just start out. We'll start out here on the, this is basically looking down on the buildings with Western Avenue to the bottom and 85th Street to the right. The light gray buildings are the quad homes. The blue buildings are the apartment houses. The red buildings are the twin homes, and the yellow buildings is the commercial. Now what we're up is what I would say in the air at kind of the southwest, looking to the southeast. And again, you can see the quad homes surrounding the apartments, the commercial, and the twin homes. Well, it's not at the beginning, but we're going to rewind. Now we're making headway. When we do get this started, we'll start right where we talked about. What you can see is the blue in the background, and when you're seeing right at this point, you're seeing the top 2 floors of the apartments. Now we're proceeding down Western Avenue, kind of looking back to the east. And if you can just kind of look wherever you see blue, that's the view of the apartments. And as I said before, that view is going to only get more enhanced in that the elevation of the road will go down, so you'll even see less. Now we've turned on to 85th Street, and again, you can just catch the little bit of blue in the background there of the apartments. The twin homes being in front, and now we're kind of swinging up and going back to an aerial view. And now what we've done is we've just added some trees, because really, frankly, the area where you can most easily see the building is that view right down our main entrance throat. In the rest of the areas, from looking at it from the center line of Western Avenue at 5'6" you can barely catch glimpses. In fact, I think if you really tried to look at it, you'd probably get in a car accident. Again, really nothing from the commercial side. From 85th Street, you're starting just to see the tops of the buildings, but the relative scale is that they're really no higher from the street than a 2-story building would be. So that's the animation.
Question, Dean?
Spencer, a question is, when you use the, I don't know exact words, but I mean, talked about the sight line, or, you know, even hiding the fact of a 3-story apartment and so forth. And I guess I'm just wondering if that is, I mean, even the way you worded it, if that is a problem for many as far as 3 stories, and I realize from the opponents that it clearly is why not just design a 2-story? I mean, wouldn't that remove much of the opposition that we have?
Well, there's 2 ways to look at it. One is that we have effectively hidden from view 3-story buildings. The other is to design 2-story buildings to maintain that same density. As Steve said, you know, you're essentially taking 1 floor off the building and then you're spreading it out. And I don't really think that from a long-term planning aspect, as Steve is saying, for the city, that to encourage things to be spread out is the issue. I think the issue here is an image. And you know, frankly, if I could disguise a 5- or 6-story building and make it look 2 stories high, I would go ahead and do it.
Further questions? Andy?
Having been out there, I apologize for not remembering, but 85th Street, does that need to be graded down as well, or is that?
Well, I think what's going to happen with 85th Street is, and again, I don't know. I'm not an engineer. What I suspect is that 85th Street might in fact be raised slightly. What I suspect is going to happen, and I could be proved wrong, it's just a gut feel of mine, is that we're going to see a substantial cutting of Western Avenue. Probably some filling in the corner where 85th and Western Avenue come together. And then some tapering of 85th Street east over to it, probably it's close to its present grade. So my point about that is that, whatever those grades are, we'll just accommodate the grading in our site to make sure that what you've seen here in the animation is what you're going to see in reality.
So this image probably was taken at the current level then, or?
Pardon?
This image that we're seeing here now from 85th Street is probably from its current level?
It's taken from 85th Street and from Western Avenue. It's taken from the present elevations as represented to us through the aerial survey. And as I said, there are some limitations. However, I don't see that, aerial surveys are not off 10 feet. They're normally accurate within a couple of feet, generally speaking. Now, they have some weird little peculiarities. When you're on 85th Street right now, if you go out there and you look north, there doesn't appear to be any kind of a bump before it goes back down the hill, and that's absolutely correct. That's a situation with where the aerial survey is either old enough that it doesn't represent something that was there, and I have no way of knowing that. But I think I still hark back to the issue is we can deliver what we're showing.
Further questions? Not, thank you very much. Further individuals that would like to speak on item 12?
I understand the City Council has to consider what is best for the planned growth of the city overall, not just what we're doing or what we're proposing to do and hope to do at 85th and Western Avenue. Again, that's why as a developer we rely quite heavily on the 2015 plan and before that the year 2000 plan, because that is a general plan that the city has used and pretty obviously is continuing to use. I'd like to point a couple of things out from that. We've been talking about acreage, and it sounds like an awful lot of acreage when we're talking about 10.3 acres of multiple family. I happen to serve on this committee, and one of the things that was done on the year 2015 plan, there were some guidelines, and I think the city's probably actually growing faster than those guidelines predicted. Certainly at that time, I didn't think I'd be standing here in 2002 talking about developing at 85th and Western Avenue. But anyway, the 2015 plan, if you look at these are the numbers of acres that we were directed to try to find within the growth boundaries of the city of Sioux Falls, what would be used by the year 2015. And if you look to the first one up there is single family, it's 7,200 acres. The number next to it is a 50% fudge factor, if you prefer. They wanted actually for us to identify 10,845 acres that would be potentially buildable on with consideration to traffic, which 85th and Western Avenue are minor arterials. But anyway, the percentages work out about the same. But this is actually what is needed. 7,200 acres of single family. And this was done, I believe, in mid-95 is about when we did that. And the second line up there is multiple family, is 875 acres. If my math is correct, and I think it is, take 7,200 acres of land that's needed for single family, not multiple family. There's a little over 45 quarter sections of land that we had to identify that would be needed by the year 2015. And then the 875 acres of multiple family land would meet an average of 19.44 acres of multiple family land if we were to meet these guidelines, and hopefully we are. That 19.44 acres of multiple family land should be identified, zoned, and ready to go somewhere between 1995 or 6 and the year 2015 if the city of Sioux Falls is to continue growing as we I think most of us like to have it grow. And again, we need to focus on that number, 19.44 acres of multiple family land per every quarter section of single family land. And obviously, if we take 10.3 acres out of this section, a quarter section of land that we have in front of you, we're somewhat short of 160 acres of land. These certainly are an average. And if you want to look at that a little bit differently, if you don't want to consider those numbers strongly, if you take the 875 acres of multiple family land, and if we limit ourselves, and Mr. Metley said that some people have had 20 acres in certain areas and so on, but this is certainly an average. But if we were going to limit ourselves to 10-acre parcels of land, well then you folks in the Planning Commission and the planning staff would have to identify in sometime during that time period 87 and a half parcels of 10-acre land to meet this requirement to enable the city of Sioux Falls to continue to grow. Some of the commissioner or the council people that I met with questioned, do we really need multiple family land? The interest rates are low now, and certainly single family is outstretching multiple family, and right now there's a strong temptation to say, let's develop it all into single family lots. And I certainly agree with that. Fortunately or unfortunately, I've been around long enough that the one thing I do know, by the year 2015, interest rates are going to go up, and they'll probably go down again. How much they go up and how much they go down, I have no idea. If I did, I certainly wouldn't be doing this. But anyway, if you take the inventory that the planning department has listed, and they call, I believe, each and every developer, and we have a map here that was done last summer. I don't have one done 12/31/01. But the inventory numbers that I'm going to give you is per planning department as of December 31st this last year, 2001. And if you take those numbers and the land usage, the numbers that they gave me, and this is actually based on building permits, since 1990, that's a 12-year run, so I think that gives us a pretty good average. If you take those numbers, we have 9.16 years of single-family land yet available, and this is land that's either developed or approved and ready to be developed in the city of Sioux Falls. And we have 8.11 years of multiple family land that's available, developed, or ready to be developed, and which I believe means that it's already zoned. Obviously, we're still 13 years away from the year 2015, which means if we don't do anything, we turn everybody down, or if we don't do our job adequately, we're going to run out of one land or the other, or maybe both, and I certainly hope that does not happen. So anyway, there is a need, and I think a demonstrated need for additional land in both single family and multiple family. In conclusion, again, I feel the need is there. We have met and conformed with the year 2015 plan. I think we followed the general guidelines of the plan, and I think it meets it very closely, and Mr. Metley thinks it meets it quite closely. As I was corrected when I set down, our multiple family traffic exits onto Western and not 85th Street. We have tried to take in several design features, terrain features that are out there. We got some drainage issues to contend with. Topography, there's over 40 feet of fall across that property. We have, I believe, totally minimized the visual impact on the surrounding neighborhood. The planning department and the planning commission agree that this is a good plan, and I certainly ask and hope that you will support it and pass it.
Thank you, Mr. Van Buskirk. Any further questions before Kevin?
Myron, I believe you just mentioned that there's some 40 feet of fall there on this property. Given the topography, obviously it's not flat land. What changed? How did that enter into your plans? What changed your plans, if anything, with this parcel?
As far as topography, one that we could be sensitive to the neighborhood, we could build 3-story, and we can't go to 4 and hide them, but we certainly can hide a 3-story building. The wetland that is around there, we have to work with that. The C4 on the corner is pretty much established item there. So in that C4, actually, we would have to do some work on moving the drainage a little bit to the east to do that. And then right across the street on 85th Street, right across from the single-family homes at the neighborhoods where most of the neighbors live there, there's a small knoll there. So that will take some fill in there too. So we'll have to take some fill off of that hill there to start dropping that hill down to fill that. So we do have enough grade above the 100-year flood to get those. Incidentally, those twin homes along 85th Street are single-story twin homes when you're looking at them.
Other questions? D.
Myron, is there I guess I'm talking about currently though, as opposed to 2015, but is there, roughly what is the vacancy rate in apartments right now? I mean, is there a shortage of apartments? I know there is affordable housing, but just basic apartments, is there a shortage?
I can't speak for everybody. The apartments that we have in town, we're in about the 3% vacant, 3 to 4%. We've been very fortunate with that. Frankly, we're losing a lot of our people to new homes because of the interest rate, because it's almost cheaper or as cheap for, and I hope our tenants aren't listening, but it's almost as cheap to own as it is to rent right at the moment. As I stated with interest rates, those certainly are going to change. You know, we're at a historic low here, I believe.
Kevin. In today's dollars, I realize this won't be built for a while, but would you consider these apartments, the 3-story apartments, moderate price range, high end, low end?
We intend to go higher end. We have apartments at just north of Colorado Tech, just on the west of Louise Avenue. We consider those middle apartments. These we anticipate being larger. Not shown on the plan, one of the things is that we will have a clubhouse. And by having this number of units, the quad homes, the townhomes there, we intend to have enough people there, the 222 apartment or multiple family apartment units, and the 88 quad homes will give us enough monthly fees that we can support a decent clubhouse. Also, this drainage area will tie into the city bike path. There's a park proposed up in the center of this section. We'll tie that in, so our clubhouse may actually replace one of the quad home buildings. We're not sure where that'll go yet.
Further questions? No, thank you. Others who wish to address the council on item 12. Let's have new material now on this one that we could.
Good evening. My name is Dwayne Jackson. I live at 27012 Brandy Place here in Sioux Falls. Through this process, you know, I'm sitting here looking at that, and I can't recall, I think we're looking at sub-area C. You know, that thing has gone from townhouses, fourplexes, now it's single-family attached, and it's no longer multiple family. You know, I fail to see where these things come from. It just boggles my mind how all of a sudden this same house turns into a single-family attached house. Do we have single-family attached houses in sub-area B then, which is the 10-acre area? And I promise I'm not going to take more than about 2 minutes here. I have here this evening a signed petition from the 85th and Western neighborhood which states that we are opposed to the rezoning of Heather Ridge 2 planned development. I will start this petition with Mr. Howes, and if he would be so kind as to pass it along so that each of you may view the document. We are not against appropriate development or growth consistent with the already successful 2015 Growth Management Plan. However, we do have objections to this development. these objections are. It is inconsistent with the 2015 Growth Management Plan. We are concerned with the proposed density on 24 acres, which is unprecedented anywhere else in the city. The observed norm seems to be 10 acres or less. We're very concerned, and I'll repeat that, we are very concerned with setting a precedence on the other three corners of this intersection. That precedence will impact us more than you can possibly imagine. I am here to discuss the first objection, the inconsistency with the 2015 Growth Management Plan. If you would refer to your copy of your plan, if you'd like to read along, you will see in sections I-3 and I-4 areas labeled as urbanized areas, planned and future urbanized areas, and rural areas. Since Western Avenue and 85th Streets are to be widened and paved, and since we are part of the new sewer system, we feel that we are therefore in the planned and future urbanized area. If that is the case, the fourth bullet point under this category reads, require that new development be compatible with existing adjacent development. Heather Ridge 2 is incompatible with the single-family homes and acreages that are across the street. We also realize that we will become more urbanized in the next 2 to 3 years. In other words, we will be annexed into the city. This would then put us into the urbanized area of the 2015 Growth Management Plan. And if that is also the case, the second bullet point under urbanized areas reads, zone stable neighborhoods to prevent encroachment by incompatible industrial and commercial uses and excessively high residential development. Once again, Heather Ridge 2 is incompatible with the established neighborhood of the single-family homes and spacious lots that have been in existence there for over 30 years. We welcome the growth of the city to our neighborhood. We simply ask that we have a voice in how it is to be developed. We have consistently asked for no more than 10 acres and not more than 2 stories, and that the development be consistent with the 2015 Growth Management Plan. Heather Ridge, as presented, is not consistent with this plan, and we therefore ask that you deny Mr. Van Buskirk's request. Are there any questions?
Other questions? Okay.
I have a question. Dwayne, thank you for your comments. My question would be, what would it take? I mean, I know you guys have worked over the course of the past few months or whatever, probably longer than that, so I'm not doing that justice, but what would it take?
Since the beginning of this thing, which started back in February, we have asked for what the 2015 Growth Management Plan calls for, and it's 10 acres. If I could get Shauna to...
And you're basing that on the definition that the quads and the twins are, you're suggesting that they're considered multifamily?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's what we've been told through this whole process until tonight. And all of a sudden, Mr. Metley gets up and says, well, they're single-family attached. I've never seen a fourplex yet that was single-family attached. It's multifamily. Now, you know, maybe we've been misled, but through the whole course, and I have the tapes of all the Planning Commission meetings, and I'd be happy to show those to you.
So again, my question, I mean, what would it take? Are you saying that the quads, if they were single-family?
We're saying 10 acres, 2 stories.
10 acres, 2 stories?
10 acres, nothing more than 2 stories.
Okay.
And if that, you know, if that filtered over into the other corners of that intersection, it wouldn't kill anybody. But if you start taking that large 31 acres and moving it around.
So just to clarify, it's not really the views, the sites, that's not what you're concerned about? You're more concerned about the traffic, the numbers of people?
Certainly. We're, you know, obviously we've been used to a lot of nice views. We know that's going to change. You know, you cannot build a city and not have a view change. Certainly that has been a concern, but not the biggest concern. The biggest concern has been the precedence and the density that is going to, come into that neighborhood. If you put 24 acres of multifamily there, 320 units, and you repeat that for sure on 2 other corners, all of a sudden you've got 3 times, you've got 900, you've got almost 1,000 units on 3 corners. If the economics get correct, there are 5 or 6 houses that'll disappear and it'll go into the 4th corner.
Thank you. Further questions? Go ahead.
I guess I just would like to give Mr. Metley an opportunity to respond to some of, because Dwayne brought up some of the concerns that I was sharing that I had heard from opponents of this. So I'd like Steve the opportunity to at least address some of those points, because those were some of the...
Andy, why don't we wait till the end, then we'll give Steve time to summarize, if you would.
I just wanted to do it while I was fresh in the air, but
okay,
whatever.
Are there any further questions?
Go ahead, Steve. Any other questions? Ann, go ahead.
This evening, you've mentioned several times the 2015 Growth Management Plan. Any concern about the property rights of the developer?
Yes.
That he owns the land and he should maybe, be able to...
Let me answer that. Yes, I do have concerns with that. And I don't like telling anybody what they can do on their own land. It's as simple as that. However, when it's going to have a big impact with a precedence being set, then I've got a little problem. We set this precedence here, and all of a sudden we're impacting, 22 landowners pretty heavily.
So,
further questions, go ahead.
If I could just, so in your mind, the precedence is more important than the property rights?
The precedence in this case, to me, is more important because it will have a large impact on 22 landowners.
Further questions? Not. Thank you very much. Steve, you want to address those issues now, or?
The areas that show twin homes and quad homes are all RD development land areas, and RD allows twin homes or up to 4 units attached. Single family attached is how they're defined in your zoning ordinance, and they're considered a lower density zone. They're not considered an RA1 zone, which calls for your 3-story apartment buildings and that type of a thing. I think the way that they have positioned the twin homes and the quad homes in this case, down here. If you look where we'll go back to that aerial photo. These are twin homes here along 85th Street, and those twin homes will typically sell for anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000 a piece per unit. So we're talking about very nice homes, and that's the type of twin homes that are being built in Sioux Falls. They would be fronting across the street to, I think there's a street in this area somewhere that has a few homes on it, but the homes, many of the homes that we're talking about in this area get to be almost a half mile away from this development. So I don't, describing that impact, if you look at what we're talking about here, this is the multifamily site right here. Some of the homes are as far away as here, here, and over here. You're getting into that half mile range in distance from those homes. And I think the developer is trying to be sensitive to the adjoining property owners, but the adjoining property owners are right in here where those twin homes are at, and right up here where Mr. Costello owns land that will have future development on it, where he has quad homes running along here. The neighborhood has not objected from day one about the neighborhood and the commercial and the office on this site. If you go back to the 2015 plan, it shows a 3-acre commercial site on the corner roughly, and a 7 to 10 acre apartment site around it. If we were to go back and do that, they'd have to destroy that 100-year drainage way that goes through there, and you'd have apartments fronting on 85th Street if we did it the traditional way we do it. But because the topography is different there, and they don't want to get into those 100-year drainage ways, and we don't want them to, they're proposing twin homes along 85th Street, and they're pushing their multiple family back up onto this lower part of this ridge, which I think meets the requirement that they be, number one, sensitive to adjoining development or adjacent development. I think the developer in this case has worked very hard to do that. And I think the other one was a fourth bullet, require the new development be compatible with existing adjacent development. Well, that development is compatible with the future development of the city in that area. We may end up with another commercial corner on that corner with some apartment housing around it. But all of it, when it's all done, if we continue developing the city the way we have been developing it, we'll all be in there overall at about 4 to 5 units an acre in housing for those areas. And that is the design density that we have for the city of Sioux Falls. And that's how we try to create that compact growth form. I also think they've gone to great efforts to give some relief to concerns about traffic from the higher density apartments in this area by putting their major entrance onto Western Avenue so that most of the traffic will not come out onto 85th Street, down to Western Avenue and up into the city, but will travel up Western Avenue to 69th and on up to 57th and into the city. So I think it's, I think they're being very careful. And I have to remind you, the Planning Commission that you appoint to study these issues has studied this issue for months. And they say that it meets these standards, and they're the ones that you appointed to review these standards. And so I hope you take that into consideration. They were unanimous in their support of this new development, with the lower densities.
Questions?
Steve, a question for you. I finally drove out there today and spent some time out in that area, which I had not been there before. And a comment that someone had, or that I made to someone who was opposed to this development was kind of like, well, but aren't there quite a few 3-story apartments in Sioux Falls? And the person's response, who's someone that's a lot more knowledgeable about development than I am, indicated to me, well, most of the 3-story apartment buildings in Sioux Falls are in real high traffic areas, like out by the mall or off Louise or by, off Kiwanis or whatever, and I don't think thought I was probably comparing apples and apples, and I was just wondering if you could help me with that.
Sure, they're all over town. 3-story apartments are the standard in RA1 zoning around the city. I think in every corner of the city, in every general area of the city, you'll find 3-story apartments. That's a standard height for RA1 type apartments in the city of Sioux Falls. It's a rarity when you see 2-story units built.
And I guess just to go a step further, something else I should have said on that kind of question was, they reminded me that in those cases where there were the 3-story, however, that they were in most cases not affecting single homes like out in this area. So that was another distinction they made with me.
They're actually closer in most areas, but the great care we take with 3-story buildings, and the great concern people with single-family homes have, is they don't want one in their backyard staring into their backyard. They want to have the distance between them buffered somehow. And in this case, like I said, the nearest single-family home is about 2 city blocks away.
Further questions?
Steve, I'm looking at the color-coded 2015 zoning map, and we're showing it on the monitor right now. Who came up with, and I realize how, my question is, how long ago was this map developed? And secondly, much has been talked about the so-called 10 acres. Is that a standard? Is that a guideline? How rigidly is that enforced?
It's most typically, it's 7 to 10 acres that wrap around a commercial on an arterial street when you get out of these new rural subdivisions. In some cases, it does get larger. In the development that Myron was talking about at 69th in Minnesota, there's a larger commercial parcel there, probably closer to 15 acres, that wraps around that office, and there's a church right there on 69th Street. If you go over to 85th and Louise on this map, that multifamily that you see wrapped around the commercial on that corner got extended all the way up into this area and has ended up being closer to 20 acres of multifamily along Louise Avenue in that area. But they brought a plan in that was approved by the Planning Commission and by the council, and as being compatible with the development that was around it. In other words, they were taking great cautions to have the single-family homes set back or buffered by some other type of use, twin homes or type.
Further questions?
We're going to approve, if we do this planned development, what are we actually approving?
What you're approving is the actual zoning. Some commercial on the corner, probably a little office with it, twin homes along 85th Street, quad homes along Western Avenue, and a multifamily in that 10-acre area in the middle, plus the 200-year drainage ways that run through there, which are RC conservation zones. So, and for each one of those developments, except for the twin home development, they'll have to come back through the Planning Commission for final development plan approval. So they'll be posted on the property, and the neighbors will have a chance to come in and look at whatever commercial or office is going to happen and have input into it. They'll have input into the apartments, and they'll have input into the quad homes. The only time that we'll see the twin home site again is when they bring in their plat. And you'll see how they lay it out then when they plat it as a council.
So they can change the arrangement of this inside that area if they want? If the
No,
planning commission...
no, they'd have to do a major amendment, and then that would take them back through the council if they wanted to change the configuration of the development.
Okay, so it's kind of like approving a half plot almost. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not seeing the lines, but we're approving how it's laid out.
Yeah, as long as they stay with those densities and that general configuration of development, it'll go through the planning commission, but it won't come back to you. If they want to come in and change, let's say, and move an apartment building closer here or higher there, it would have to come back through this group.
And we're approving the number of apartments too.
Right, the
That can't go
densities.
up.
Right, the densities is what you're approving.
Further questions? Others that wish to address the council on item 12?
My name is Deb Olson, and I live at 27025 Windswept Place. One of the objections that we have as a neighborhood with approval of this zoning request for Heather Ridge 2 concerns the density of the proposed project. Sub-area B, which carries the highest density, is planned for 3-story apartment buildings comprising 222 units on approximately 10 acres of land. This calculates to 22 units per acre, which means that sub-area B by itself falls into the RA2 high-density classification. According to the city's zoning ordinance manual, this is the highest residential category. Mr. Van Buskirk has spent a lot of time to show all of us that we will hardly be able to see these apartments, and what we do see will be very nice. While we appreciate these efforts, these units are still here, and it will add 600 to 750 people to this corner alone. This higher density will result in higher traffic and activity levels in our area, and with that, a drastic change in the now unique signature of our area of Sioux Falls. We do realize that 85th and Western will eventually be paved multi-lane streets, but we don't want to see a high-density commercial atmosphere encouraged. In order to avoid having it develop in the likeness of Louise and Minnesota avenues to the west and to the east, we feel that 85th and Western area should be purposely developed in a quieter, more spacious manner because of the prior existence of a very significant number of single-family homes. To give you a visual image of the immensity of this kind of density, I have a photo of 264 units on 10 acres of land, and that's Platinum Valley at 69th and Louise. You can readily see what a huge expanse of building that this kind of density necessarily creates. Yet these pictures demonstrate only part of the 328 unit package proposed for 85th and Western. And the 85th and Western proposal is 24 acres of multifamily. You could redefine them however you want to, but you've got twin homes, you've got fourplexes, and you've got large apartments. And they are several families in one building that's multifamily. So we're talking 24 acres here, not 10 acres. 10 acres has the largest density, sub-area B. I'd like to point out Appendix B of the Zoning Ordinance Manual, Chapter 15, Purpose and Title. On the left side, Purpose and title states that the purpose of zoning regulations is to prevent overcrowding of land, to avoid undue concentrations of population. A key word here is undue, unnecessary. The 2015 plan guidelines under urbanized areas says that higher density housing should be encouraged, convenient to downtown and other major activity centers. I think of examples of such areas as the apartments south of the Empire Mall. There are no major activity centers near our neighborhood. Where is the need for high-density housing here? Additionally, the guidelines for planned and future urbanized areas call for sufficient multifamily housing around commercial and industrial areas. There are no commercial or industrial centers near our neighborhood. Again, where is the need? The purpose of ordinances goes on to state, over on the right side now, the regulations establish districts where the single-family homes are provided maximum protection from intrusions, including higher density residential uses. The neighbors represented here comprise a long-established district of single-family homes adjacent to the parcel that includes these high-density apartments. We would ask the Sioux Falls City Council to uphold and adhere to the purposes of the zoning ordinances. Don't overcrowd the land, avoid undue concentrations of population. For the neighbors in this area, I respectfully ask that Mr. Van Buskirk's zoning request for this planned development be denied. In its stead, we feel that 10 acres or less of multifamily and a maximum of 2 stories on any apartments within that area is more appropriate. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Yes. Earlier we heard about the 2015 Growth Management Plan, and you mentioned the zoning ordinances that we have in Sioux Falls. Any concern about the property rights of the developer?
You know, we live in a populated world, a populated area, and I think when you come into a city situation, each person is living next to another person, and individual rights have to be balanced with the rights of the person next to you. If we all just looked at our own rights, we would be very poor neighbors. And I think that that's the purpose of zoning ordinances. Anytime we elect to live in a unit, we have to look at who's next to us and what we're doing to impact someone else's property.
So the zoning ordinance is kind of more important than the property
No,
rights?
I think the zoning ordinances, they do address this. They say that things should be compatible with things next to. Certainly every person on their property within reason should have a right to do what they would like on their property, but you can't do it to the expense of someone next to you.
Further questions?
What is the developer doing directly to your own personal property, directly? Is he invading it or what?
No, he's not invading it. It's changing the nature of the area to a point where we feel and we are afraid that it will create more traffic and make it more commercialized than it needs to be. If it were to develop in a family, single family, even twin home, limited multifamily, so that it stays residential. Perhaps that's the key. We want it to look residential. When you go down Louise Avenue, Minnesota Avenues, and anywhere you look at 3-story apartment buildings, look around it and you see office buildings, gas stations, commercial, retail, and it's a much higher density, higher activity area. We want residential. We live in residential, we just want to be residential. And we think that this can be multifamily and still look residential, just simply by keeping the size reasonable, which the zoning call, or the 2015 plan calls for, and also keeping it to 2-story, not going to 3. So we can still have multifamily and not be so big.
Further questions?
If I could just make one comment, then so there's nothing, your property is not being directly invaded. It's just the surrounding area that you're concerned about, the acreage around you, not that your own individual property is being invaded.
Of course not.
Okay.
Further questions? Not, thank you. Others that wish to address the council on item 12?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Sorry this is taking so long. My name is Jeff Gould. Address is 47347 85th Street. And Shannon's going to get a map here to look. Now, I'm told at the last meeting that you didn't have these necessarily. Is that right, your growth management plan? Do you have those maps with you now? Okay, could you, since we don't have an overhead yet, maybe you could open it up and I'll just kind of talk on the map, which is kind of what Myron Van Busker talked about a little bit. When they sat down as a planning and zoning board, their job was to try to integrate this evenly throughout the entire city. And you see that the yellow is the single family, and then the orange is multifamily, and that would mean duplexes, quads, apartments, etc. And then you have the commercial, the office, the parks, and the open space, and it really is a masterful plan. There's no place that's overly density and under densitized. They found a way to make use of the plan. And what I'm going to try to do here is to take this plan and blow it up by quarter sections so we can sort of see in the same scale what they are talking about putting on 85th and Western and how it does or does not comply with the 2015 plan. Yeah. Okay. What you're looking at is a quarter section map. I got it from the City Hall downstairs there. This is 1 inch equals 100 feet. Now, if you were to look at this 2015 plan, down in that little section here where we're at 85th and Western, you would see that little drainage area there, and what the yellow square represents is what that plan shows to scale 10 acres of multifamily housing. And then you see that little red square there, that would be what the commercial part of that would be. So what I did was I took this Heather Ridge plan and I blew it up to scale to fit inside that so we can see what we're looking at. Okay, you see how that fits in along the drainage area? It's about 2.5 times what the city planned for in 1996. I'm assuming that the planners looked ahead to the future and imagined how the city should look. And what we have here is 2.5 times outside what their plan was. I want to show this in comparison to some other things that are currently being developed and already have been developed. Okay, that is what you see here is the Dunham property over there. That's that new one, and this is Louise Avenue right here. This is 69th Street. This is where that new Lewis Drug is going to go. Everybody know where that's at now? Okay. And in the plan with the city 2015 plan, that yellow area would all be multifamily housing. It looks to me like what the city did was they did a little bit of a swap and they kind of switched that circle or that square around a little bit. This looks like single family here, and looks like this area here will be developed for multifamily and for commercial. Now, if you were to look at your 2015 plan, you would see that they're falling right exactly along those guidelines. They haven't gone outside those borders at all. They've maybe swapped some acres, but the acreages stay about the same. Now, I'm going to get this up on the, this is, let me get my square right. Okay, this is, okay, I'll show this one last. That's the mall we were looking at. These are great maps, by the way, for 15 bucks. What a Christmas present, huh? Anyway, what you're looking at here, this is Royal Oak Apartments. And what you see here is the outdoor campus, and this is Sertoma Park. And this whole area here, if you were to look at that in your 2015 plan, you see this would be green because it's park, and this whole area here would be orange, all of it. And if you could look at it a bit closer, you'd see that here are some duplexes, some quadplexes, some multifamily. Here's the Royal Oak Apartments, 185 units. There's a lot of multifamily housing there. This is to scale. That shows you just how big this development is going to be. And lastly, the biggest apartment complex that I could find in the city was in the mall. Now, on this map here, here's the Royal Fork. There's that Hy-Vee parking lot. Get a scale here, and here's the mall parking lot here. And all of this that's a big apartment complex unit that's south of there, right? That's Somerset Apartments. That's 360 units. It's the biggest thing in the city that I can find. This is what we're looking at. Now, if you were to look at your 2015 plan, you would see that this is out of whack for 85th and Western. It's 2.5 times bigger. The 2015 plan calls for a lot of multifamily housing evenly distributed, but it doesn't call for that much at 85th and Western. We like the plan. It seems to make sense. We just ask that you stick with the 2015 plan. Any questions?
Questions?
Yes, Kermit?
It's probably not going to be a surprise. The question I'm going to ask you here, because we've had the 2015 growth plan, we've had the zoning ordinance, we've had the planning maps, and now the question is, how about the property rights? Is anybody concerned about the property rights of the owner of the land and how they develop it?
Well,
that's really a concern that I have, Jeff.
You should look at, understand that I am the furthest away of all the neighbors. I am right down the middle of a section line between, in fact, let me get this. Okay, excellent. Can you point out where I am, Shannon? Right there, that's me, right there. See, I'm right along that section line. That means that in the 2015 plan, that road to the north of me will be there and it'll cross. I'll be on a corner, right up there where the dotted line is, Shannon. That's going to be a road in the 2025, 2015 plan. Oh yeah, I got concerns about my property rights. If that road goes south, then they're going to cut my house in half. As it is right now, they will take, I don't know, 80 feet, whatever it is. And so that's what, when you sign on for the 2015 plan in 1990, and realize I moved my house there in February, and I saw the plan in March or April. So I've been watching this very, very carefully, Kermit.
Further questions?
Yeah, Jeff, I don't want them taking your house.
What's that now?
I don't want them to take your house.
Thank you.
I'm going to support you in that.
God
if
bless
we
you.
can have you support this other property owner here.
Further questions?
Oh, yeah.
Anyone else?
If not, thank you. Are there others who wish to address the council on item 12?
Hello, my name is Tom Costello, and I live at 2216 Black Rock Circle, and I'm sure you're all tired of hearing all this rhetoric and would like to move on, so I'm going to be real quick. My family owns a property directly to the west of this parcel. How this is developed affects me. So if this is developed as 24 acres of multifamily, it's going to be very difficult for me to have a single-family, twin-home family type development. We'd hope to develop our property more consistently with the 2015 plan. That is to have single-family, multifamily, single-family, and twin homes on most of it, and then some amount of multifamily, probably 10 acres or less, and then the corner be commercial. Now, earlier tonight, Mr. Metley said that he didn't realize that I was opposed to this because I hadn't mentioned it to him recently. Well, I'm here to ask you to deny this request because I am opposed to it. Another thing that came up is there is all kinds of places in Sioux Falls where we have this much multifamily zoning. And one of the examples he gave was Richmond Estates, a development that my family has put together. And yes, there are 20 acres of multifamily housing there. We have a restriction that was put on us by the planning department that no buildings be over 2 stories. And those 20 acres are developed and have a total of 190 units on them. If something like that was proposed, I don't think the neighbors would be opposed to it. But we're talking about something much, much bigger here. It's a lot of density for that small area. Any questions?
Questions?
Tom, when you have a development, do you like when neighbors come in and say, well, we don't like this or we don't like that? Any empathy here for?
Do I like it? No, I don't like
Yes.
it, but generally we work with the neighbors to get something that everybody can agree to.
Further questions? Andy?
The project that the development that you just referred to, did you try to get it to be 3-story with more units? And
No, we didn't. We went to planning with our plan, and they said we can approve this if you agree to no units being over 2 stories. And I think, but I don't remember, I think it was also no buildings over 15 units, but I don't actually remember that. But as it turns out, there are no buildings over 12 units and no buildings over 2 stories. So to say that this is similar to Richmond Estates really isn't a good comparison.
Further questions? Not. Thank you very much. Others that wish to address the council on item 12? If not, briefly.
Very briefly, corner of 69th and Western Avenue, we have purchased 14 acres of multiple family there on the northwest corner. It backs up to single family on one side and twin homes on something else. Mike Spencer's got a statement.
I'll be real brief, which is real hard for an architect, but I'll be really frank. I think that the gentleman before Mr. Costello gave you some misinformation. This is not 28 or 31 acres of high-density housing. This is 10 acres of medium-density housing. High-density housing in Sioux Falls is 1 unit per 1,000 square feet. Second of all, a lady showed you a photograph of Platinum Valley as representing what we're planning to design. I have access to those plans. Platinum Valley is 975 feet 6 inches long, 202 feet wide, 3 stories high. Hardly compared to our 279 by 65-foot buildings. And so I really believe that is not a representation of what we're looking at. My third and last point is, other than the 10.23 acres of multifamily, the density on the site of the twin homes and quad homes is about 1 unit for 7,200 square feet. The minimum lot size, I think in Sioux Falls, is 6,000 square feet. So there is absolutely no way that this is 30-some acres of high-density housing. It is 10.23 acres of medium-density housing, with the rest of the site being relatively low housing density plus some commercial. Thank you for bearing with all of us.
Question?
Just very briefly, Spencer, I'll ask you because you can probably answer this. The quad homes surrounding the apartments, will those be rental units as well?
We intend them to be for sale. We intend those to be for sale units. If to start that and to make the town or the clubhouse work and some of those things, we'll probably build several in a row, so it's possible a few will be rented out during the sales program, portion of it.
How many square feet would each unit be?
We haven't designed, they're 2 stories, so I'm sure at a minimum it'd be 1,900 square feet, somewhere along there.
For each unit? For each unit?
For each unit plus an attached garage.
Okay.
And when they are single-family attached, how old I'm getting, I did single-family attached, 26 on Marion Road that backs up to some 3-story apartments I own there. We did those several years ago. These happen to be 2 buildings together. I think the big differential is, call them quad homes or townhouses, whatever you want to call them, but when you buy one, you own the land that it sits on. I mean, you can go out and kick the dirt all you want to, nobody cares.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Not. Thank you. Others who wish to address the council on item 12? You on item 12? Or?
No, I'm
You're just waiting. Wait for the next item?
waiting for any discussion. you
Any
might have.
discussion on, or action on item 12?
Mr. Mayor, I have one quick question for Steve. Can you tell me what the projected engineering grading timeframe is going to be in this project?
Probably, we're hopeful of getting some work started on Western Avenue next year, but these will probably be development-driven projects and will be stretched out over a 3 or 4 year period for 85th Street and Western Avenue. Some of the preliminary looks do call for Western Avenue to be cut down to some extent, but they also are looking at raising the intersection of 85th and Western by 8 feet. And also cutting some of the hillside on 85th Street down because the grades are just too steep. So they're going to raise it a little bit and cut it a little bit and level those roads off quite a bit out in that area. But when they raise that intersection 8 feet, it will change the character of that area quite a bit with a big intersection built there.
Further questions, comments, or action on item 12?
Move for approval.
Move for approval is a second.
Second.
Second. Comments on the motion to approve item 12?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this has been on our radar screen for a couple weeks at best. If you take a look at the history of this, you have to go back to the original conversations that the developer had with planning staff. Then you go to the Planning Commission, the several meetings that they've had to deal with it. I've talked with some of those people. I've talked to both sides, the developer, those homeowners out there that have lived there for many years. I've talked to Planning Commission members. I feel that on balance, nobody's going to be happy when we get done here. We can't please everyone with this decision. But I believe on balance that I'm going to have to put my faith in the Planning Commission and the planning staff. I think they're doing their job here.
Further comments? We've got a motion that's been moved and seconded. Further comments? There. Go ahead.
Well, I would agree with what some of Kevin has said. This is a difficult item. There's no question about that. I think we have the developer, the Van Buskirks, who are widely considered one of the good guys in the development industry. There's no doubt in my mind they'll do quality work. They have integrity. On the other hand, we have a residential group, neighborhood group, a large one at that. In my 2+ years on the city council, we've seen a number of neighborhood groups come in front of us. It's you begin to have this ability to analyze which angle, which perspective these neighborhood groups are coming from. It's pretty easy to peg those groups that come in here not wanting development around them of any kind. They like the wide open spaces, the rural areas, and so forth. I don't sense that in this group. The group and the discussions I've had, they've made it very clear they're not opposed to the commercial on the corner. In fact, they welcome it. They're not opposed to the twin homes directly across the street to the north on 85th Street. I think what they're asking for is to simply lower the density. They don't have a problem with the fourplexes. They don't have a problem with the apartment complexes. I haven't heard from a single one of those individuals that they're opposed to conceptually anything that's planned out there or being brought forward. The other thing that makes me a little nervous is in our discussions tonight, we've from time to time alluded to the 2015 plan being somewhat of a moving target. I can't tell you how many times we've had folks from neighborhoods come in here and ask, how did this get built across from my house or out in the area where I live? And we say, you know, we have this 2015 plan. It's been on file for some time. You should have come down and taken a look at that. It's here for anybody to see. And now to kind of reverse things and say, well, yeah, the 2015 plan is there, and this is what it calls for. But geez, you can't really hold us to that because that's a long ways out, and things change. I won't hold the planning staff, planning commission, or ourselves to that 2015 plan to the acre. But I think when you're talking about wide variations, I think we should be responsible to the homeowners. And Councilmember Staggers repeatedly has made mention of property owners' rights. Well, I'm just as concerned about the property owners' rights for the folks who have their homes out there. I think they certainly have a right to be concerned about their property where they're raising their families or retiring. I think what this really comes down to is individual interpretations by each of us up here on the 2015 plan and the definition of multifamily. I have to be honest with you, I'm somewhat embarrassed to say this, but I had no idea we considered quad homes or fourplexes somehow something other than multifamily. That I just don't understand that. And I guess I tend to look at things literally, but and pretty straightforward. I don't understand that. I think that's something we need to really look at, because your average person out there doesn't pay that close of attention or detail or to the details of a professional planning guide. So I think that's something we need to look at. Again, I'm not opposed to Van Buskirk's progressing with some type of development. I sincerely hope they do. It's my hope that we could somehow lower the density, and maybe a way of doing that is to switch some of the quad homes to twin homes, and lower the apartment buildings to 2 levels, which I think we've heard tonight is consistent with other developments too, in terms of the stipulations we put on those. So I would encourage this group to vote against the application tonight. Again, not allow the Van Buskirks to develop that piece of property, because I think they should and I think they will. We just need to get something that everybody can live with. And I think there is a possibility everybody can be happy when it's all said and done. Neither group will get exactly what they want, but that's probably the way it should be and would make for the greatest compromise. And I think that's what we need to work towards, that goal.
Further comments? Andy?
Just to follow up on what Darren just said there, and also something that Kevin alluded to, I genuinely believe that both sides of this issue are trying to do the right thing here. I don't think that the neighbors are trying to block development. I do truly believe that they expect it, welcome it in some form. And I believe the Van Buskirks have a fantastic plan here. I mean, it has the potential to be a tremendous development, and they've obviously spent a considerable amount of time and money putting it together, which troubles me the most because of how, I feel I should vote on this. And I guess my gut just tells me that there's the potential here to make everybody happy. I just truly believe that there's some confusion on not on both sides, but on the opponent's side, and that they feel that they just haven't maybe understood what's taking place here, and that maybe if this is brought back before us in 6 months and some effort is put into working with them more, that the end result will be much better for everybody out there. And to what Kermit has said, I mean, obviously property rights are the highest priority here, but the folks that live out there do have property rights as well. They've invested their money into the homes and land that they own. So I do feel that they have a say in the process. It's not the ultimate say, but they do have a say. So I don't know that if by defeating this tonight, hopefully it wouldn't end the possibility for development here. I just think that there's some legitimate concerns on my part about the understanding of how this all played out.
Further question? Comments, I should say? Kenny?
I hate to ask a question, but I feel after having the discussion here I need to. Myron, what would be the net impact on you to have to wait 6 months? I mean, what's that do to you? What is your time frame? What are you looking at trying to do? How soon were you hoping to start?
Not sure I can answer that question. We have petitioned to get Western Avenue improved, and that's probably going to be off a little bit.
Let me ask this question,
Okay.
while I let you think about the first
Okay.
one. How firm are you on, I know I'm putting you really on the spot here, but how firm are you on your plans right now? I mean, is that something that you'd be willing to go back to the table and negotiate with the folks a little harder, or is it really something that you feel like you need to get an answer from us as a council on tonight? Say, for example, if we weren't to kill this entirely and send it away, would a 3-month window of time be an opportunity for you to go back yet again, or do you think that's not productive at this time?
you know, the neighborhood has brought up the fact that why don't we do single-family housing there? And as far as developing the land as a developer, I guess I would rather do single-family. But I also know that we are talking 10 years to get from 69th Street to 85th Street. I can go back and, you know, we did Kingswood. Everybody said it went so great. We did 17 acres a year for an awful long year, many, many years. I do know, I don't know, I am very confident that in the next 10 years, interest rates are going to go up and probably back down. How much up, how much down, I do not know. If I knew my market was going to be out there for the next 10 years, yeah, we could probably make as much, you know, if we're just talking dollars now, make as much money doing single family. I like to hedge my bet. We have 200 and some odd single family lots on the North Heather Ridge. You know, if we sell 40 a year, we're having a good year. There's 5 years right there before we cross the waterway to get into the south if we're doing single family. Right at the moment, we have about 9.5 acres, I believe, of RA1 on the north. The market was such that we have sold off, and I think you've probably gone home by now. Mike Thurman, we sold off some. We're getting it rezoned to be coming before you because we screwed up and got the cart ahead of the horse. But anyway, we platted some of it off and did twin home because that's the market. 2 years ago when we came in to do it, we didn't think that was the market. So we have a moving target out there all the time. And again, I know in the next 10 years, interest rates are not going to be where they're at today. If somebody can guarantee them we're going to be at today, we'll put in single family. But we need to hedge it. The other thing we do not build single family, we do build multiple family. And it gives us some place to build multiple family property. We also own multiple family, several units in town, and that also stabilizes our family's financial resources over a period of years. So it's a big stabilizing thing. 6 months, will it kill us? No, probably not. But 6 months from now, we have lost anything to look at year 2003. The city wants to buy the detention pond. There's a trunk line that needs to come up through there. This decision is going to influence probably where that trunk line comes up through that draw a little bit.
Sure. Would going back to the table with these folks, I mean, it would, I just hate to see this thing. I'm not trying to guess at where we're going here, but I would hate to see anything happen where you couldn't get something worked out and you had to wait 6 months to come back, and then you have the whole process over. And is it satisfactory at that point in time? Who knows? What I'm trying to get at is here, I think what Andy tried to point out is it appears as if there's some opportunity for more compromise. And I don't know, I guess I'm trying to ask you, can you stand here and tell me, can you compromise anymore? Or you really feel like you're up against a wall?
We feel we're right at the wall. I don't know if we're absolutely up against it, and I'm not throwing it out as a carrot out here. You know, we have dropped 144 units, depending on the number you want. We moved the area north. We surrounded it with quad homes that are going to be single-family, you know, privately owned, individually owned units. Distance-wise, we're a long ways. I have a photograph here of the next closest building to this project. It happens to be a construction building. At the time we took it back in March when we started, there's trucks and equipment sitting out. Most of the people that spoke, if they're sitting in their house, can't even see this property. So I think you know, and I appreciate it. If I lived there, I would probably be on their side of the table tonight too. But I'm not there. And again, I think we're found year 2015. If you would prefer to put this off for 2 weeks, I'd be willing to meet with a neighbor. I don't think we're going to get there. Just real quickly, building a 3-story over 2-story, you know, it takes the same amount of foundation on a roof on a 2 as a 3. So obviously, if you put another layer of apartments in the middle of it, it's certainly a whole lot cheaper, not counting elevators and a few other things.
Well, let me ask you this then. Given the discussions that you've had over the past time period, I mean, what I'm getting here tonight is they don't seem to be opposed to the, quote, quads. I mean, what they're really getting at is they don't like the 3 floors. I mean, that was kind of what they broke it down to.
And if I can just answer that, if you can't see it, what difference it makes? Deb Olson made a statement in one of our meetings. She said, I never realized or never, and she can probably quote it better than I can, never paid any attention to 3-story apartments until this came up. And that's a very good point. You don't pay attention. You look at River Oaks, you drive by on 57th Street, it sets down about a story, but there's absolutely a few trees, bushes or something between 57th Street and the building. Here we're putting up quads that are acceptable. And my question is, if we're putting 3 stories in there that you can't see, that look like 2 stories, or we put in 2 stories that you absolutely can't see anything of, what difference does it make? You're going to drive by and look at the fourplexes, you know. You're going to drive by and look at the quads. I mean, Spencer did not put in decks, windows, and curtains on these things.
I am inclined to agree with you, and I mean, just for discussion purposes, I guess with the council again. Now, I'm very inclined to agree with what you're telling me, and I do, in general, support what you're getting at. I just find myself flummoxed because I really want to find something that makes more people happy, but maybe that's not possible. And I appreciate your comments.
If I don't want to get into a denial where we're talking 6 months and have to come back.
Okay.
You know, we made some mistakes. You know, we assumed initially that multiple family in a corner, we were going to ask for C4 or RA1 zoning. Well, the RA1 got thrown out, and we prefer to have, or the neighbors prefer to have commercial. That's fine. If you want to defer this for you meet again in 2 weeks, that's fine. I'll be glad to have a meeting with the neighborhood. I doubt if much productive is coming out. I'm certainly willing to do that, and I'm certainly willing to have a moderator there if you like. But again, 6 months in this business costs us essentially a year if we want to do something next year. Okay. I don't know today that I want to do that, but I don't know that I don't.
Thank you.
Either.
We got a motion that's been made and seconded on item 12. Is there further discussion?
If I could, I don't want to see this thing go south, and I don't want to delay the inevitable either to that respect. So I'm going to float a substitute and see how far I get. I'd like to make a motion to defer this till the first meeting in October, which will give them approximately 4 weeks instead of 2, and we can take another look at this thing then.
Substitute motion to defer until October, what'd you say first?
7th.
October 7th, is that the first meeting?
October 2nd, 7th?
7th. Okay. Monday the 7th would be the first meeting.
There's been a substitute motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second. Comment, there's been a substitute motion been seconded to defer until October 7th, is that right? Any comments on that motion? Yeah.
Well, just briefly, I think that is a better proposal because in effect it does the same thing as a denial. It sends them back to the drawing board, but instead of requiring a 6-month wait before they come back, they could come back in October, which would still, if something is going to be done as soon as next spring, and I think we've heard tonight it won't, this should not impair that ability on the part of the developer to do that. The other thing I think it should make clear at the meeting is, I have to say, from both sides I've heard, on one side it's more of a skyline or aesthetics issue, and I haven't heard that from the neighbors. What I get out of this, and I think we would need to see in October to consider approval, would be the density issue addressed. I really haven't heard in any of the discussions that it's a skyline or an aesthetics issue. It's really the density, and that's what I'd like to see the two groups work on when they get together between now and October.
Got a motion? Go ahead.
What I would appreciate as well, it would be nice if when we all came back here to resolve this, if there was less confusion or misunderstanding on, I don't want to say confusion, misunderstanding, because that, I don't mean to sound critical at all of the opponents of this, but they had all kinds of things to show us to help us make up our minds on this. And if it's that wrong, that it's that far out of whack with the 2015 plan, then I would hope that effort is made to show why it is that they might not be correct or why there might be a misunderstanding of how this land could be used. So everybody's at least on the same page.
Got a substitute motion that's been moved and seconded to defer until October 7th. Item 12, further comments. There being none, all in favor of deferring until October 12th, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. Tamara?
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson? No. Rust?
Yes.
Benninga?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers? No. Howes?
Yes.
Item 12 will be deferred.
I would make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
5-minute recess. Be back right at 9:30 then.
District to allow mixed-use development, including commercial, office, multifamily, and light industrial. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This 40-acre parcel is immediately to the east of the parcel you just approved the rezoning on. This is an area along Career Avenue that will have economic development for the most part on the east side of Career Avenue and residential buffers of some sort on the west side before we grow into single-family housing. The petitioner in this case is seeking 22.3 acres of office and light retail development, 7.2 acres of RE1 multifamily development, and 9 acres of straight I1 light industrial development. He intends to market this parcel of land, which is north of LodgeNet and the Southeast Tech USD DSU campus, as a business and technology park, which is very similar in nature and uses as Valhalla Business and Technology Park, which is located just to the south of the Empire Mall. So it's, we think it's a very good use for that area, and we did have worked with the developer a great deal on approving the layout, and the Planning Commission does recommend approval.
Questions of Steve on item 15? There being none, are there others that wish to address the council on item 15? There being none, is there council discussion or council action on item 15?
Move for approval.
Move for approval, or second?
Second.
Second, comments on the motion to approve item 15. There being none, all in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. Tamara?
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust?
Yes.
Benninga?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
House?
Yes.
Item 15 has been approved. Item 16.
Item 16 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by providing supplemental appropriations 1999 sales tax construction fund and park.
Good evening, Dean Nielsen. This year action will provide the appropriation authority needed for the amendments that you made to the 2002 capital improvement program in reprogramming funds from this year construction fund where the appropriation had lapsed.
Are there questions of Dean on item 16? If not, are there others that wish to address the council on item 16? There. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, yeah. The transfer to the Parks and Recreation of $414,707, what's that going to be used for?
This is part of the proposed funding source for crossing into Paisley Park.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Further questions?
Move for approval.
Move for approval, or second?
Second.
Second,
Kavanaugh.
comments on motion to approve. There being none, all in favor of item 16 will vote yes. Those opposed vote no. Tamara, please.
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
No.
Yes.
Rust? Benninga?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers?
No.
House?
Yes.
Item 16 has been approved. Item 17.
Item 17 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by providing supplemental appropriations, Public Works, Park, Police.
This year, when the first three items, the safety grant, the capital improvement sales use tax, and the private donations are dedicated funds to capital program items that you approved on August 9th as an amendment to the 2002 capital program. The last two items from the police department, the $680 and the $6,347 are not capital improvements but need appropriation as they are grants and rebate drug money that have been awarded to the city of Sioux Falls. The first one is a partnership grant for purchase of bulletproof vests. The second one is federal drug rebate revenue, which will be utilized in drug enforcement.
Are there questions of Dean on item 17?
Yes, the $52,000, what is that going to be, Dean?
As was there's $40,000 for the Edgewood Road traffic calming, which you approved. And the second one is the traffic signals at 12th and Cliff and 14th and 2nd Avenue.
Excuse me, I didn't get the first one.
Edgewood Road traffic calming, which you approved.
Further questions of Dean on item 17? If not, are there others that wish to address the council on item 17?
Move for approval.
Move for approval. Is there a
Second.
second?
Benninga.
Any comments on the motion to approve? There being none, all in favor of approving item 17 will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. Tamara, please.
Councilmembers Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust?
Yes.
Benninga?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers? House?
Yes.
Item 17 has been approved. Item 18.
Item 18 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by changing the council's order of business.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, this ordinance was brought forth by myself and Councilmember Rust. We've been here almost 3 hours now, and we have 6 more items to go before we get to public input on our agenda. What this ordinance will do, if passed, is take public input from the last item on our regular agenda and place it as first on our regular agenda. This is, as a public body, we do the people's business in these chambers, and I believe that every once in a while people come before us and advise us on how we should do the people's business. I think if they're going to spend the time and effort to do that, I think we should give them the opportunity to do it first on our regular agenda. So I would urge your approval of this ordinance.
Are there questions, Kevin, on item 18? Are there others that wish to address the council on item 18? There being none, all in favor of, is there a motion? Did we get a motion?
Do we have a motion? I would move for approval.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor of item 18 will vote yes. Those opposed vote no. Please call the roll, Tamara.
Councilmembers Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust?
Yes.
Benninga?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers? Yes. House?
Yes.
Item 18 has been approved. Item 19.
Public hearing for public input on the proposed issuance of economic development revenue bonds to finance the project for Rummel Memorial Home Incorporated, Dow Rummel Village.
Item 19, is there anyone that wishes to address the council on item 19? There being no one, we will then close the hearing on item 19. Item 20.
A resolution declaring the official intent of the City of Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County, South Dakota, and calling a public hearing regarding a senior residential rental project proposed by Rummel Memorial Home Incorporated.
Dean Nielsen. The resolution before you this evening is to declare the official intent of the city to issue tax-exempt revenue bonds for Rummel Memorial Home Incorporated, known as Dow Rummel. This here is the city's role as conduit debt issuance. It's no way counts as debt towards the city or put any responsibility for that debt retirement upon the city. And you will have to take further action once debt would be issued through the form of an ordinance as per the charter. We have people from Dow Rummel here this evening to give you a brief overview of the project and bonding.
Other questions of Dean? If not, are there others that wish to address the council on item 20?
Hi, I'm Darla Van Rosendale, Chief Financial Officer and Project Manager at Dow Rummel Village at 1000 North Lake Avenue. Some of you are probably familiar with our project. We were before the City Council about a year ago regarding the planned development rezoning and the street vacation. But for the benefit of those of you who weren't, I'd like to spend just a couple minutes and tell you about our project. Dow Rummel currently has 83 independent apartments, 75 residential apartments, and a 50-bed nursing home. During our expansion project, we will be adding 60 more independent apartments, 35 assisted living apartments, and a 14-bed special care unit for Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. Dow Rummel was an innovator in the retirement industry when we began 40 years ago, and we wanted to continue that innovation. We feel that we're going to be able to do that with the addition of the Village Center. The Village Center is a link between the north and south ends of our campus, It also contains a wellness center with a pool and an exercise area and fitness area. Many of you have probably read articles recently about the importance of fitness for our senior adults. The Village Center will also have a clinic area with exam rooms so that doctors can provide services to our residents on campus. We will have new administrative offices and a main entrance in the Village Center, as well as a fine dining room for our independent residents and a deli to provide a less formal, more informal dining for them. We will also have a branch bank, a general store and gift shop, a library, a game room, a beauty barber shop, and a museum featuring South Dakota family businesses. We feel that this museum is a way for us to give back to the community by honoring the businesses such as Dalrymple, who have started in South Dakota. One of our goals during this project was to ensure that this project not only enhanced our campus through the additional services that we were going to provide, but it also had to enhance Dalrymple financially. We have been working with our investment banker, A.G. Edwards, and a CPA firm out of Toledo, Ohio, Plant and Moran, since about January on a feasibility study for the project. We've had to make some changes to make sure that this project is feasible, but we're very pleased with the final results. This project will continue to strengthen Dalrymple's financial position, while it'll allow us to continue to offer reasonable rates to residents and various rates for various income levels. And at the same time, it also enables us to continue our endowment fund. We have an endowment fund that was started about 10 years ago to help financially assist residents who need that assistance. And over the course of the 10 years, we have supported about $1 million to residents in financial assistance. When we began our planning on our expansion project, we looked at other areas that we might be able to build instead of expanding on our current campus. We had several pieces of property that we owned that were outside of the city of Sioux Falls. But we decided to stay here on our campus and grow, not only because of the great location that we're in, but because of all that the city has to offer to our residents. We really appreciate all that the city has done in our neighborhood and look forward to the addition of Covell Lake, the work that's going to be done at Covell Lake, as well as the new Veterans Memorial Park. We also felt a responsibility to our neighborhood, and that's what this expansion project allows us to do. But we also wanted to help ensure that this neighborhood stays safe and friendly for our residents. And so about 2 years ago, we began the Covell Lake Neighborhood Association and have been very pleased with the support and involvement that we've had of the other businesses in our neighborhood as well. We appreciate the support that the city has shown to Dalrymple and to this project and ask for your continued support through the bond issuance to finance this project. I would like to invite Doug Hayek, our bond counsel, to come up now and speak just for a few minutes on the details of the bond issuance, and then we'd be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I will be brief. We're going to be looking for somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 to $35 million in bonds. It depends on what the total cost of the project come out at and what the debt reserves and such that we have to establish. As Dean Nielsen mentioned to you, these bonds are issued through the city of Sioux Falls, but they do not constitute a debt of the city or a financial obligation on the city, either legal, moral, or in any other way. And we will be coming back probably around the first week in October for a first reading on an ordinance to authorize the issuance of bonds. And we are just waiting for some of our credit things to get worked out with A.G. Edwards, our investment banker, and some of those arrangements need to be finalized before we come back for a first reading on a bond ordinance. Any questions?
Are there questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there others that wish to address the council on item 20? If not, is there council?
Move to pass.
Do pass is a second?
Second.
Second. I got a motion, been moved and seconded to do pass. Item 20, comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. Tamara?
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
House?
Yes.
Item 20 has been approved. Item 21.
21 is a preliminary subdivision plan, West 57th Street South and Galway Avenue for Galway Park addition. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This relates to the two earlier rezonings that we did for Galway Park addition and the subdivision that's being recommended for approval. Why don't you put the entire subdivision up? This is the one that's up on the screen now. It includes twin homes to, I hate to say it, quad homes along 57th Street, backing up on 57th Street, and the rest of it being RS2 single-family, primarily starter homes in this area. It also includes a major drainage way, as you see, coming through the area that will be a wetland in that area. We'll have, it's particularly in the drainage channel and nearby it, a lot of wetland grasses. We'll also have a great deal of open space and is adjacent to the parkland that Mr. Thurman is proposing to give to the city in this area. So it will be a neighborhood park in that area, which is called for in the 2015 plan. Something that neighborhood parks and neighborhood schools we've found to be very important to quality of life issues in Sioux Falls, and certainly a tradition we want to continue in Sioux Falls. And this would be the only neighborhood park in this south of 57th Street and I guess west of, almost west of Holbrook Avenue. So it will be a neighborhood park that will get a lot of use in that area. Planning Commission did recommend approval.
Are there questions of Steve on item 21? If not, are there others that wish to address the council on item 21?
Move for approval.
Move for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Comments on that motion? There being none, all in favor of item 21 being approved, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. Tamara?
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
House?
Yes.
Item 21 has been approved. Item 22.
Resolution to approve a historical marker on city property.
Don Seaton, my staff, was here earlier tonight, and I told him to go home, and I'd take care of it. He wouldn't have to sit here for 3.5 hours to do this one. But this is an historical marker proposed by the Board of Preservation and the Minnehaha County Historical Society, one of roughly a dozen they put up a year. This one is proposed to be between the Arts Barn and the viewing tower at Falls Park, and it is meant to tell the human timeline for the Falls Park area, going back to glacier times. I've got the plaque here in front of me if you'd like me to read it to you, but it does tell a very nice history of the Falls Park area and up until we showed up. Anyway, so if you approve it, once it's up, I hope you go down and read it.
Questions, Steve?
I move for approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Did you get a second? I got a second from Darren.
Steve, does it have a completion date?
I hope so.
We have a motion that's been moved and seconded on item 22. Further comments? There being none, all in favor, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. Tamara?
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
House?
Yes.
Item 22 has been approved. Item 23.
Resolution supporting the tax-exempt status of the commemorative Air Force.
Dean Nielsen, before you this evening is a resolution that would support the exemptions as provided by state law for the commemorative Air Force from when they were in town for sales tax, and this here just encourages a favorable ruling for them.
Is there questions?
Move for approval.
For approval, a second?
Second.
Second, comments on motion. There being none, all in favor of item 23 will vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. Tamara?
Council members Gleason?
Yes.
Knutson?
Yes.
Rust?
Yes.
Benega?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Staggers? House?
Yes.
Item 23 has been approved. Item 24.
The Department of Legislative Audit has accepted the City of Sioux Falls audit report for the year ending December 31st, 2001. It has been received and filed.
There's no action to take place on that one there. That's just for informational purposes.
Move to adjourn.
Wait, we're down.
I'm sorry.
We're down to public input, and we have
I'll get in trouble for
Kathy.
that one.
Kathy, we got 5 minutes, and Kathy, if you want to address the council.
I know it. But Kathy's just going to come over here and smack me upside the head.
Seriously, I apologize for being, I didn't know it was going that late, I really didn't.
I'm sorry, Kathy.
That's okay. I'm Kathy Brechtelsbauer, 2900 Poplar Drive, and I can't complain too much because I, first of all, want to thank all of you, especially Commissioner Kavanaugh, for that grand move to put the public input at the beginning. So thank you very much. As I mentioned before, I'm here to plead with you to put your heads together and come up with a way to get the penny city tax off the groceries. You have an option. You don't have to do this. The limit is 1 cent for food right now, and there are other cities in South Dakota. Actually, most cities, probably the majority of cities in the nation, do not feel it necessary to tax groceries to run their city, and they're functioning fine without that. And in South Dakota, we have some cities who have chosen not to take city revenue from the tables of their residents. That would be Mitchell and Pierre and Rapid City and Spearfish and Wentworth and New Underwood. So we appreciate that. And I'm really hoping that Sioux Falls will join this group of cities that have taken the high road on this. And the main reason, as I mentioned before, is that this tax actually does take food off the tables of some citizens. Not many of us, not most of us probably in this room, but there are people on limited food budgets, and when we tax their groceries, that's taken that much of their food budget away. And obviously, 1 cent's the city and the bigger piece is the state. But that's an important consideration also. One thing that's important about the timing on this is that the day will soon come when, if we don't end this tax on the groceries, it will increase and people will have to pay more tax on their groceries. And that's because of the rules that have been set out in the streamlining process in order for the state and the city to be able to collect tax on sales made over the internet. Things have to be simpler, and the city will not be allowed to have a different tax rate for food as it does for other items. And therefore, I doubt that the city's going to want to drop everything to 1 cent. So I imagine the city would probably raise the tax on groceries. And unless you have, no, I just don't think there's any way. So that would make it even a worse situation for people with limited food budgets, people who are already hurting from this tax on food. Now, as I mentioned, the state, of course, has 4 cents, and that's a much bigger impact on the budget. But very soon, the cities and the states are going to have to tax the same items. So that's why I'm asking for your leadership. As a very important city in this state, it would be a great example for this state, and it would have a great impact if Sioux Falls would decide to drop its cent on food. Because one of the reasons the state uses when we go there and ask them to take the tax off groceries is that the cities need this money. So if the city could please find a way to manage without taxing groceries, that would help immensely in leading the state to do the same thing before it comes time when we start this tax on sales over the internet. And then the tax on food will have to be the same in all cities, and that will force these cities that I mentioned before to start taxing food when they don't now for their city. So for their residents, it'll make the matter even worse. So as part of being a neighbor to our other cities in the state and concern for people who are hungry, it would be really helpful if the city could take its penny off and show this leadership for the whole state. I hope that this made some sense. I hope you followed this reasoning. Ending this tax will put more food on the table for people who need it. And when it does end for the whole state, this loss of revenue for the city, I believe, and I'm confident of this, would be somewhat offset, because there are people now who are not doing their grocery shopping in Sioux Falls. I have friends that work in Sioux Falls that go shop, they live over in Brandon and go shop in Minnesota on the weekends at the grocery store. And you know what happens when people go to a grocery store? There's a lot more than food that goes into the grocery basket, a lot more. And all of that is revenue that our state is losing. As well, there are people from other states. Many people, as you know, come and shop here in Sioux Falls. This is a great mecca for shopping. And the ones from other states, a lot of them will go back home to Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, to go to the grocery store. Because why should they go here when they're going to be paying more for their food because of the tax? So if we didn't have the tax on groceries in our state, people would feel better about shopping here in a grocery store also. And that's a lot of toilet paper, shampoo, a myriad of items that we would collect the tax on, including state and city. And so partially our lost revenue, if we drop the tax on the groceries, would be offset in some measure. You know, probably not the whole thing, but some measure it would be offset. And if anyone has any doubt that having the tax on groceries impacts people's decisions about where they shop for, go to the grocery store, just consider southeast South Dakota. There is no grocery store in South Dakota south of Elk Point, because people in that southeast corner can go over to Sioux City, Iowa, where they don't have to pay tax on groceries. And in fact, someone started a grocery store in North Sioux City, South Dakota, not long ago, and 2 months later closed it down because it wasn't going to make it. And that's the impact that the tax on groceries has economically, besides the fact of what it does for hungry people. So we're asking for your leadership. The whole state needs it. Fixed income people need you to do your part to reduce hunger, and you can make this city a finer city for everyone.
Thank you.
Kathy, thank you for being with us tonight, and I just want to say that I admire your work in our community more than I could ever tell you. I wish there were many more people like you. But on this topic, for those people who say to me, or when even that has been suggested by me as a possibility in the last few years, and they say, well, Dee, a lot of those people that you are targeting to try to help are already on food stamps, and I would just be curious what your response is, or what my response should be to those people.
That's a very good question, because people need to understand that the purchases with food stamps are not taxed for the sales tax, and so everybody needs to realize that. What's happening, though, is that we have, I know statewide, we've got about 95 or so thousand people in poverty in our state, and 40-something thousand get any food stamps at all. In other words, about half of people in poverty get food stamps. And when they get food stamps, they're not necessarily getting a full allotment of food stamps. They're getting partial food stamps. It all depends on how much income you have. Like I know somebody on disability who gets $60 a month. I know someone else on disability who gets $10 a month for food stamps. That's all they get. So even if they're on food stamps, they're very apt to be paying other parts of their income for groceries. But like I say, only half the people in poverty even. And as well, there are people just over that poverty line too that have really tight budgets. Good question. Thanks.
Okay.
Kathy, I don't doubt the statistics, and I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm asking it simply because I'm startled that, as you say in your handout, 1 out of every 20 items, you know,
Okay.
they can't buy because of the food tax. Where does that come from? How do you figure that?
I figure that because the food tax is 5%, 1 city and 4 states. So 5% out of $1 is the same as 5 cents out of $1 is the ratio of 1 to 20, right? So for every 20 gallons of milk that a fixed income, tight budget family buys, there's 1 they cannot buy because they're putting that money into tax on groceries. For every 20 loaves of bread in a tight budget, limited income household, there's 1 they cannot buy because they're using that amount of money for the food tax.
I thought...
For every 20 head of cabbages, there's 1 they can't buy.
Okay, but
1 out of 20.
Just to clarify, I thought we only charged 1%.
Well, I'm talking about how much they're paying on food. And of course, 1 cent of that is the cities, and 5 cents is the 4 cents is the states.
See what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we're really in the business here of trying to get the tax off the groceries, both city and state.
And state.
Yeah.
I admire your courage and your determination. Thank you.
Well, most states don't tax groceries, so there's got to be a way.
Well, I keep up the good work.
Kermit?
Kathy, I agree with you that I think Sioux Falls could really be a leader in the state of South Dakota towards getting rid of the sales tax on food. But having said that, this coming legislative session, do you have plans to also try to get some legislation introduced into the state legislature to get rid of the state sales tax on food?
Well, I'm the Bread for the World coordinator for South Dakota, and we try this almost every year over there. It's been many, many years. You were not in there when Red Allen was, but he used to enter a bill every year. And it went down every year, but obviously they've gone down all these times. But most years, yeah, we've had a bill on this. Yeah. And we're just getting the word out, you know. I think the more and more people hear about the fact that it does take food off tables, but I think that makes an impression on people because most of us in the halls of decision making, you know, that hasn't been our experience, at least lately. For a lot of us, never. So it's hard to fathom that.
Okay, thank you very much, Kathy. Appreciate your time. Others that wish to address the council?
But Kathy's already talked about that very, very well. My name is Melanie Bliss. I live at 2021 South First Avenue, and I come with several hats tonight. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of Dow Rummel, and I'm pleased for your efforts about that. Also telling you that Dow Rummel donates gladly space to a number of advocacy groups that meet in their building, and also sometimes treats and food. I'm also a Bread for the World member and the coordinator for the Sioux Empire Homeless Coalition. And one of the points that I'd like to make with my bag of groceries is that, and I wrote it inside of it, a tax that brings hunger to some is not fair. And I had the instance today, I was at the Women of Hope group, and there was a mother, or an older woman, a mother and a daughter who was imminently going to deliver a child. They had no food. And they were turned away from the food pantry because the food pantry only gives food every 60 days. And if you've been there within the last 60 days, then you don't qualify. I took them to an agency in town, quite a distance away. They had no bus passes, they had no access. And at that agency, they were given a small food basket. But the quantity and quality of that food basket was meager at best. They did give the person who was imminently having a baby one package of newborn diapers, and they gave her a small baby quilt. But it hit home with me that there is hunger in Sioux Falls. And so very few people qualify for food stamps. And food stamps do not provide the nutrition that you need when you have young children. And this is a great issue. The Homeless Coalition is certainly advocating for the hungry and the homeless in Sioux Falls, and I think that this will come up over and over in the future. And we bring it to your attention, and do know that there are people that are hungry and that need food. And those of us in this room probably are not those people. It is also hard to have the people that need it the most come to talk to you, to say, I don't have enough food. I took the older woman and the young mother-to-be home, and they were very proud of where they lived. And she said to me, because we don't have enough money to pay the rent, we have a nice landlord, and I clean the whole apartment building. And she does that because she doesn't have enough money for the rent as well. And I was very glad for a beneficial landlord. We don't always hear about those cases. We hear cases that are all, evil or wicked, but that was a person who was trying to help that woman. So that's my story for tonight. As a member of Bread for the World, I'm glad to come to support Kathy, and I'm very pleased that you're having public input at the front of the meeting. I know that the school board did that for a number of years, and it's got some problems because people want to talk when they want to talk on the issue, but it's very good to have the public input. So
Melanie,
thank
how
you very
come,
much.
let me ask you a question. How come the food pantry, they'll only give food for 60 days?
No, they only give you one allocation every 60 days, so you can't come back
So
for
one
another 60
allocation
days.
is what?
It's about 2.5 to 3 days of a supply that they consider as a supply for your
So
family.
you only get that once in 60 days?
Yes,
So in 60 days you can go back?
yes, you can't go back
What's the
before
rationale
60
for that
days.
then? If these people are needing food, I'm trying to understand
Well, I can't speak for their policy, but I'm sure that they didn't want people to abuse it. And they keep extremely careful records at the food pantry. I mean, they have got records to the detail of how many boxes of everything people get. But there are a number of food pantries in Sioux Falls. Most people don't realize that there's 6 or 7 of them operating, but none of them are as big as the food pantry is that's next to, that's on Phillips Avenue. A number of churches have some small, operations, and they're not open every day. And sometimes they're only for members of the church, or just if you happen to be there on Tuesday morning when they're there, and if they have food. Not all of the pantries always have food. But I don't think most people do realize how many there are.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very
So,
much. We appreciate
just
it.
sharing personal experience today. Thank you for all
We
your fine
appreciate
efforts.
that, Melanie. We appreciate it very much. Apologize for the late hour it is. Is there others that wish to address council for public input? If not, is there a motion to
Now I'll
adjourn?
make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Smith.
Second, good, okay. All in favor of adjourning will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. Tamara?
Council members Gleason.
Yes.
Knutson. Rust.
Yes.
Benega.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Kavanaugh. Staggers. House.
Yes.
We are adjourned.